If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 1, A Stroke of Luck. Author's note. Hey everyone, Wanderer here. For the best experience, just switch off your brain and enjoy the ride. Beep beep. Bang. Kenji was staring down at his phone, completely oblivious as he wandered into the middle of the road. It was the perfect storm of carelessness and bad luck. A large, red truck came speeding toward him, and in the next instant, Kenji was airborne. After tracing a perfect parabola through the air, he slammed onto the pavement with a wet thud. A pool of blood spread out from his unmoving body. Inside the truck's cabin, the driver tipped the brim of his hat down, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Performance goals met for the year. Hope you enjoy your new role, kid. And so, our protagonist died. He was 18. The world of Toriko Earth. It is said that there are beasts whose entire bodies are marbled with the most succulent fat, meat that melts the moment it enters your mouth. It is said that there are springs from which gush forth refreshing drinks, their flavors a mix of rich, fragrant melon and perfectly ripened mango, constantly bubbling with sweetness and aroma. The world has entered a golden age of food. It is the Gourmet Age. A piercing scream ripped through the sky as Kenji found himself in a high-speed freefall, plummeting straight toward the ground. Boom! A dull thud echoed out. As the dust settled, Kenji was splayed out on the ground in the classic Yamcha pose. He pushed himself up, his eyes blinking with a newfound clarity. Where the hell did that truck send me? He looked around at the strange, unfamiliar environment. This definitely wasn't home anymore. Is anyone out there? Kenji stood up, dusting himself off. He eyed the road ahead cautiously and began to walk. The utter lack of people was unnerving. Hello? Anybody? Hiccup. Speak of the devil. An old man with a striking white pompadour hairstyle staggered toward him, a bottle of booze clutched in his hand. He was swaying so heavily it looked like he could tip over at any second. Even from a distance, the potent smell of alcohol hit Kenji. But as he got a clearer look at the man, his expression froze, his eyes widening in recognition. Ha! He breathed out. Wait a minute. Are you the knocking master, Jiro? Kenji instantly knew who he was looking at, and the earth-shattering realization of where he was hit him like a ton of bricks. He had been transported to the world of Toriko. No way, man. So Truck-kun really can send people to another world. Before his untimely demise, he had obsessively read the Toriko manga and watched the anime. This was Knocking Master Jiro, the second disciple of the gourmet god Acacia, also known as the Rampaging Beast. A living legend among gourmet hunters. Almost every item on Jiro's full-course menu was a priceless ingredient with a capture level in the thousands. He was arguably one of the strongest beings on the planet, though his end in the original story was deeply unsatisfying. He died when Acacia released the catastrophic amount of damage that had been sealed within his body for years, causing him to explode. It was a fate that always felt cheap and unfair to Kenji. Jiro's death was a classic case of being killed by the plot. Ichiryu suffered the same fate. They were simply too powerful. If they hadn't been written out, the main character's plot armor would have been completely overshadowed. In his final battle, Jiro had released his own seals and gone all out, utterly dominating the Blue Nitro. If it weren't for their life-saving taste balls, they would have been annihilated long before Acacia even showed up. Early in the story, during his confrontation with Joie in the human world, Jiro had stopped the Earth's rotation for a moment with a single punch, a feat of terrifying power that made even Joie admit he was one of the top 3 strongest on the planet. Hiccup. You know me, little fella. Jiro slurred, his drunken eyes managing to focus on Kenji. He had been living in obscurity for so many years, he was surprised anyone could recognize him on sight. Of course I do. You're Knocking Master Jiro, the legendary gourmet hunter, Kenji said, nodding eagerly. That hairstyle was unmistakable. Being in the world of Toriko meant danger lurked around every corner in the form of monstrous beasts. But if he could stick with Jiro, he'd be guaranteed safe passage to a civilized city. Master Jiro, Kenji began, swallowing his pride, are you by any chance looking for a disciple? Whether it worked or not, he had to try. What if Jiro actually said yes? Jiro squinted, studying the young man. As a gourmet hunter, especially one of his legendary status, the desire to pass on his skills was always present. This young man was actively asking to become his student, so he didn't refuse outright. He could sense that the kid possessed a powerful gourmet luck. Jiro wanted to train a mighty gourmet hunter, not some other profession. You want to become a gourmet hunter? Jiro asked with a grin. Kenji nodded enthusiastically, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. It looked like he had a chance. Then keep up, Jiro said, turning and continuing his drunken walk. How much you learn will depend on your own talent. Kenji scrambled to follow him. Becoming the disciple of knocking Master Jiro, this would be the foundation for his new life in this world. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Deep within a range of rolling mountains, Kenji had changed dramatically. His once unremarkable frame was now toned and powerful, covered in well-proportioned muscles that looked as if they were finely sculpted, humming with immense strength. He kept his black hair short, and his handsome features were now set with an air of confidence, his dark eyes sharp and full of spirit. Kenji, I have nothing left to teach you, Jiro said, his face filled with pride. In just 3 short years, Kenji had absorbed nearly all of his techniques. To master most of his skills in 3 years was a feat to be proud of. Any further growth would have to come from real-world experience. Master, how do I stack up against the 4 heavenly kings right now? Kenji asked curiously. For the past 3 years, he had focused entirely on learning Jiro's skills. While his own power hadn't grown astronomically, he was already far stronger than most gourmet hunters. Dealing with beasts around capture level 100 wouldn't be a problem, in fact, he'd have the upper hand. Compared to Toriko and the others at their current level? You're definitely more outstanding, Kenji, Jiro said with a laugh. The sense of accomplishment from raising a disciple who surpassed Ichiryu's was a new and satisfying feeling. It's about time for you to go out and make a name for yourself, Kenji, Jiro said in a more serious tone. The gourmet eclipse will be here before you know it. Staying here won't help you get any stronger. This was the human world, where the capture levels of beasts were generally low. Jiro suspected that Kenji had gourmet cells, but the ingredients here were likely not high-grade enough to awaken them. No matter how much gourmet food he ate, the improvement would be slow. Only ingredients with higher capture levels contained the vast energy needed to stimulate the awakening and evolution of his cells. With Kenji's current strength, navigating the human world wouldn't be much of a problem. Kenji nodded. He was getting excited. After living in a cave for 3 years, he felt like a modern caveman. He wanted to build his own house in this world, he couldn't just keep sleeping under the stars. He also hadn't met the main characters yet. Since he was here, he had to meet them and explore the newbie zone of the human world. While the ingredients weren't as outrageously high level as those in the gourmet world, the human world still had plenty of delicious foods worth trying. Just as Kenji was daydreaming about his future, a mechanical voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Ding, Starforger has joined the chat group. A system? Kenji froze. 3 years. It's been 3 whole years. He had long since given up on the idea that he would get a golden finger or some kind of cheat ability. Why couldn't you have shown up sooner? He grumbled internally. I could have been punching Nitro, kicking Schwa, and elbow-dropping Acacia by now. Oh well. After 3 years of training under Jiro, he at least had the power to protect himself. He decided to check out this all-too-familiar chat group. Starforger? Kenji was pleasantly surprised. His nickname had a nice, powerful ring to it. He was quite satisfied. It must be a sign of my future achievements. Chapter 2, Familiar Faces. Let's see what we've got here. The moment Kenji joined the chat group, the existing members immediately popped up, their messages flooding the screen. Miss Pink Elf, ooh, a new member. It's been so long since anyone new joined. Welcome, welcome, a very warm welcome to you. Miss Pink Elf, my name is Elysia, a beautiful maiden as lovely as my name suggests. In the common tongue of the old world, Elysia means paradise or Elysium. Miss Pink Elf, Elysia's selfie.jpg. Miss Pink Elf, you have to post a picture too, newbie. The attached photo showed a flawlessly beautiful young woman with long pink hair and a curvaceous figure that was perfectly proportioned. The pink piggy, hairsker of queers. Kenji instantly recognized her. It was Elysia, the hairsker of human, Ego, the flawless human from Honkai Impact 3rd. At first, you think she's a classic pink-haired character who is secretly evil, but after playing through the Elysian realm, you realize she's pure-hearted through and through. Ah, Ely. Amen. Lady Justice, hold on, that nickname is a bit much, isn't it? Starforger? Are you some kind of big shot? Ghost of the Uchiha, forging stars? I wonder how that compares to the Rinnegan's Chibaku Tensei. Kenji mulled it over. Lady Justice must be the Hydro Archon from Genshin Impact. He wasn't sure if it was the goofy Focalors or the Divine Furina, but either way, the title God of Justice fit. As for the Ghost of the Uchiha Rinnegan, Chibaku Tensei, that one was a dead giveaway. It seemed like every crossover chat group fanfiction had the same staple members. This was Madara Uchiha, Hashirama Senju's best friend and Mito Uzumaki's lifelong rival for his affections. The man who ultimately got his heart figuratively, and literally, ripped out by Black Zetsu. The fact that he knew about the Rinnegan's abilities meant this Madara had already awakened it. Kenji wondered if he was still barely clinging to life in a cave somewhere or if he was already in the Pure Land. Including him, there were only 4 people in the chat group. It wasn't too noisy. That made sense. Madara only ever really talked when his bestie Hashirama was involved. As for the 2 girls, no matter how much they liked to chat, they couldn't be online 24/7. Judging by Alicia's comment, it had been a long time since the last person joined. Star Forger, hello, everyone. My name is Kenji. I can't actually forge any stars, yet. Miss Pink Elf, the chat group probably assigned that nickname based on its judgment of your potential. If you can't do it now, it must be something you'll be able to do in the future. Kenji agreed. It seemed like his future self was going to be a total badass. Miss Pink Elf, so, we have someone who can use ninjutsu and someone who can wield elemental powers. Kenji, what kind of world are you in? Star Forger, I'm in a world where everything, and I mean everything, is gourmet food. Lady Justice, for real. A world like that actually exists? Degree. Ghost of the Uchiha, unheard of. Miss Pink Elf, that sounds like a fascinating world. You can eat anything you want. Kenji couldn't agree more. Aside from being incredibly dangerous, this world was a paradise. Even the rocks could be made of chocolate. And with the food immersion ability that people here had, you didn't have to worry about getting diabetes or fatty liver disease from overeating. A new notification popped up from the group chat system. Daily sign-in function unlocked, sign in for a random number of points, 1 to 100. Exceptionally lucky members may receive items or abilities. Shop function unlocked, spend points to purchase goods. Miss Pink Elf, the chat group has features like this. Star Forger, I think my arrival must have met the member requirement, which is why these functions unlocked. Miss Pink Elf, let me try it first. Ooh, 66 points. No item, though. Lady Justice, only 30 points. My luck is the worst. Degree. Ghost of the Uchiha, 56 points. Average. If Lady Justice is Focalors, Kenji thought, then her bad luck makes sense. 500 years of playing a role to deceive the heavens, a lucky person would never have to endure that kind of suffering, only to be put on trial by her own people in the end. Then again, if Bennett from her world were to sign in, he'd probably get a single-digit number. Miss Pink Elf, what about you, Kenji? Did you sign in? Let's see how many points you got. Star Forger, here I go. Kenji was curious himself. What would his luck be like? Sign in activate. Ding! Congratulations to Star Forger for receiving 1 potential awakening potion from the daily sign-in. A system-wide announcement appeared for everyone to see. Lady Justice, no fair. Why does Kenji get an item on his first try? Focalors was so envious her eyes were turning red, practically overflowing with hydro energy. Miss Pink Elf, wow! You got an item on your first try. Your luck is amazing, Kenji. Ghost of the Uchiha, potential awakening. Does it fully unlock a person's latent abilities? Star Forger, I can't believe I was actually lucky for once. Even Kenji was in disbelief. He would have been happy with 60 or 70 points, but he hit the jackpot instead. This was a complete reversal from his gacha game luck back home, where he'd always have to hit max pity to get the character he wanted. Did crossing over to another world completely change my luck? A potential awakening potion, the name was self-explanatory. Drinking it would unlock his hidden potential. Kenji remembered Master Jiro telling him that he likely had gourmet cells, but they hadn't been activated yet. This potion from the chat group was probably the key. He carefully stored the potion and opened the newly unlocked shop. An dazzling array of goods filled the screen. Ika Ika Paradise, 50 points, heh heh heh, you know what this is. Uchiha Bloodline, 1000 points, can be purchased and integrated, but awakening the Sharingan depends on the individual. 1 Tomo Sharingan, 2000 points, requires prior purchase of Uchiha Bloodline, otherwise it cannot be deactivated. CEO Wei's Instant Noodles, 5 points, instant noodles featuring a picture of the bald CEO. Little Pink Dress, 7 points, discarded by a certain doctor. The Catch Polyarm, 100 points, tested by the Raiden Shogun herself for durability and strength. The Raiden Shogun Special, 2000 points, the Raiden Shogun's signature. Dish. Kenji browsed through some of the items. The selection was bizarre and eclectic, containing things he never could have imagined. He was particularly curious about Ika Ika Paradise. He told himself it was purely for the academic purpose of critiquing the great literary works of Jiraiya, and definitely not for any other reason. After all, even Kakashi couldn't put the books down. Miss Pink Elf, my, that little pink dress looks awfully familiar. Isn't that the one I gave to Mobius? Elysia feigned a little bit of heartbreak. To think, she had given Mobius her favorite little dress, only for Mobius to secretly throw it away. Kenji's mouth twitched. If Mobius had actually kept it, she wouldn't be the snake everyone knew and loved. Chapter 3, The Dragon King. Gourmet Cells. Discovered by the gourmet god Acacia within a deep-sea creature called the gourmet jellyfish, these extraordinary cells were named for their unique properties. Gourmet cells form a symbiotic relationship with their host. By consuming delicious food specifically, high-level ingredients packed with immense energy, the cells evolve, granting the host superhuman strength, speed, and regenerative abilities. They can even trigger the evolution of the host's body. Gourmet demons are entities formed from highly evolved gourmet cells that reside within the host, often possessing their own independent consciousness. As the host consumes enough high-level ingredients, the gourmet demon gradually awakens, bestowing powers that defy common sense. A perfect example is the red demon, which grants Toriko his superhuman sense of smell. In Kenji's view, they could also be called gourmet cell spirits, souls dwelling within the cells themselves. He had no idea how he'd gotten them. He hadn't been soul transmigrated, his entire body had been brought over. They must have been a bonus prize from his trip to this world. But gourmet cells weren't all benefits. They came with a dangerous side effect. If a host failed to satisfy the cell's craving for delicacies, especially after long periods without eating, they risked being consumed from within, leading to madness or complete physical collapse. When ordinary food no longer suffices for evolution, one must hunt rare, high capture level ingredients. If that endless appetite isn't controlled, the host becomes a slave to their desires, a monster that knows nothing but eating. Still, there was no denying the massive power boost that gourmet cells provided in this world. Not everyone was like Ichiryu, who possessed the monstrously powerful gourmet demon Dawn Slime but chose not to rely on its power, achieving world-class strength on his own. Strawberry flavored. A little sour, a little sweet, not bad. Kenji uncorked the potential awakening potion and downed it in one go. The red liquid had no strange medicinal taste, instead, it was refreshingly strawberry-like. He smacked his lips, wishing there was more. Whoa! Burn, my Cosmo! A few breaths later, Kenji felt his entire body ignite. A staggering amount of energy erupted from within him, like a violent volcano on the verge of blowing its top. His blood began to boil, feeling like molten lava coursing through his veins. The sweat that beaded on his skin evaporated instantly from the intense heat. Pfft! A sweet taste filled his throat, and he coughed up a mouthful of scorching hot blood. An excruciating pain shot through every part of his body, as if thousands of ants were tearing at his flesh and bone. But through the agony, he could feel a transformation taking place. His entire being was evolving. This had to be the reaction to his gourmet cells activating. Kenji! Hey? Could this be a gourmet cell awakening? Jiro rushed over at the sound of Kenji's pained cries. Seeing his disciple kneeling on the ground, his brow furrowed. He hadn't expected the awakening to be so sudden. He didn't leave, instead choosing to observe the situation closely. If things went south, he would have to step in and use his knocking to seal the awakening process. Kenji could always try again later when he was stronger. Erg. After half an hour, Kenji's powerful, well-defined muscles began to wither, shriveling up as if all the moisture had been sucked out of them. He was reduced to a horrifying, skeletal figure. The energy stored by his food immersion ability wasn't enough. Like a bottomless pit, the gourmet cells devoured his reserves and immediately started consuming his physical body. If this continued, he would be eaten alive by his own cells. Kenji, can you hear me? You need to eat, now. Jiro's voice boomed. Moving with lightning speed, he gathered a massive pile of ingredients. He knew exactly what Kenji needed most right now, a colossal amount of food. If he could survive this initial onslaught, he should be fine. I can hear you. Kenji lifted his head, his body trembling violently. He reached out a quivering hand, grabbed a slice of mousse cake, and shoved it into his mouth. As the food entered his system, a jolt of life shot through him. He began grabbing food with both hands, stuffing it into his mouth with the desperation of a starving ghost. He knew, with absolute certainty, that if he didn't eat, he would become a real one. The enormous pile of food vanished at a visible rate. Jiro continuously brought more, gathering these relatively common ingredients with ease. I'm alive. So full, that was amazing. Kenji finally stopped eating. His gourmet cells had reached a point of saturation and were no longer consuming his body. After the awakening, the most noticeable change was his aura. It was significantly stronger than before. His muscles regained their mass, now gleaming with a healthy sheen, and his eyes sparkled as if tiny stars were twinkling within them. Congratulations! You've awakened your gourmet cells, Jiro said with a smile. Now that they were active, Kenji could grow stronger continuously by eating high-energy ingredients and would eventually be able to tap into the power of his gourmet demon. Thank you for everything, Master, Kenji said gratefully. Jiro had been working tirelessly to feed the bottomless pit of his newly awakened cells. Jiro simply waved it off, picked up his booze bottle, and turned to leave. Kenji was his disciple, of course, he would look out for him. Left alone, Kenji began to carefully sense his new inner state. Soon, a look of utter shock appeared on his face. He could see his gourmet demon. Though calling it a demon didn't feel quite right. Before his inner eye was a majestic, mysterious, and impossibly vast star dragon, radiating an overwhelming pressure. Its long, serpentine body was covered in deep blue scales that shimmered like the night sky, with starlight peeking through the gaps, as if the endless river of the cosmos flowed between them. Having played League of Legends, he recognized it instantly. This was Orlion's soul, the Star Forger, one of the cosmic creators of the universe, capable of forging stars and manipulating celestial bodies, a being of unimaginable power. The version in the game was a heavily nerfed shadow of the real thing. If the original lore version were put into the game, almost no one could beat him. His gourmet demon was the legendary Orlion's soul. The realization made him exclaim out loud. Woot! Time to fly! Upon closer inspection, he noticed something strange. This dragon spirit had no will of its own. It was a manifestation of pure power, unlike other gourmet demons, which possessed their own consciousness. This meant that if Kenji could master the dragon's power, he could become a being like Orlion's soul himself. He was, in essence, the Star Forger's successor. Unlike Toriko and the others, the level of this dragon spirit was simply too high. On Earth, the only ingredient that might unlock even a fraction of its power was probably the final ingredient, God. A normal gourmet demon could be fully mastered by eating Acacia's full-course menu. For him, that same menu might only unlock the power of a single arm. He thought about the white ogre within Toriko, which, with a single finger, completely obliterated Acacia after he had fused with Neo. The terrifying power of Orlion's soul far surpassed even that of the white ogre. It had no upper limit. For now, Kenji couldn't use the Star Forger's power. Just as Toriko's body couldn't handle the white ogre's full strength, his own was far too weak. Eating Acacia's full course might allow him to use a portion of it. No matter, he thought. The universe is full of high-level ingredients. And besides, I have the chat group. Chapter 4, The Power of Spoilers. The power of the Star Forger granted him many potential abilities, but for now, there were only a few Kenji could access. Flight was a given. It's only natural for a dragon to fly. He could also manipulate space, though he was likely confined to Earth for the time being, and his teleportation range wouldn't be too extravagant. He also gained the ability to survive in a vacuum. Until he unlocked more of the dragon's power, all his abilities were essentially light versions. For example, he had the power of creation, but he couldn't just create a real planet out of thin air yet. It wasn't much, but it was more than enough for now. The main priority had been awakening his gourmet cells, they were the fastest path to growing stronger in this world. Kenji now also understood why the chat group had given him the nickname Star Forger. It was all because of the power of Orlion's soul. Lady Justice, the authority of the Hydro Dragon costs so many points. Focalors had spotted the item in the shop, and her heart leaped. Her intuition screamed that if she could obtain the authority of the ancient Hydro Dragon, she could solve the crisis foretold in Fontaine's prophecy. But the price was a staggering 50,000 points. Even if she managed a perfect sign-in of 100 points every single day, it would take over a year and a half. The chances of that kind of luck were slim to none, it would likely take much longer. She knew the crisis was fast approaching. There just wasn't enough time. A glimmer of hope had appeared, only to be snatched away, leaving her to stare at it helplessly. Star Forger, are you Focalors? At Lady Justice. Lady Justice, who are you calling a fool? Listen here. I Furina de Fontaine am the queen of all waters, people, and laws. Lady Justice, as long as we stand in the epic lace opera house, before the oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale, I, the god Furina, can pass judgment upon even the other gods of this world. Kenji was now certain. This wasn't the divine Furina, it was the actress, Focalors. That over-the-top, theatrical declaration was a dead giveaway. Furina would never say something like that. Besides, he thought, I called you Focalors, not a fool. You're telling on yourself. This version of Furina really wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Still, teasing her sounded like fun. Ha. Time to drop some truth bombs. Star Forger, my dearest Hydro Archon, in that case, could you defeat Liu's warrior god, Morux? Lady Justice. Furina was completely stumped. Wasn't Kenji from another world? How could he possibly know about Tivat? She had been intentionally vague about her world to protect her identity. She had certainly heard of the great Morux. Though she'd never met him, she knew for a fact she couldn't beat him. Others might not know her secret, but she was painfully aware of her own limitations. She was just a mascot. If she had Morux's power, she wouldn't have to worry about the prophecy in Fontaine, let alone spend 500 years pretending to be a god just to hide the fact that she had no divine power. If she had that kind of strength, she wouldn't need to act like a god. She would be one. Lady Justice, ahem. If Morux dares to come to Fontaine, I will dare to put him on trial. This was a time for bluffing. She couldn't let them know how weak she was. Lady Justice, how do you know about Morux? I never mentioned him. Miss Pink Elf, yes, Ely is quite curious about that too. Star Forger, well, how do I put this? Sometimes, the stories of one world become known in others in the form of games or movies. I happen to have played a game about your world, Tivat. No wonder so many transmigrators in these chat groups love to abuse their meta-knowledge. Ha. Furina, you wouldn't want anyone else to find out you're just a fake god, would you? Lady Justice, how much do you know? Oh. Furina's heart skipped a beat. Could Kenji possibly know her biggest secret? Star Forger, quite a bit. For instance, I know about Fontaine's prophecy, how all the people of Fontaine will eventually be dissolved into the primordial sea. Star Forger, and I also know about me, in the mirror. Lady Justice. It was over. Game over. Barbecued. The sliver of hope Furina had been clinging to was unceremoniously crushed. The me in the mirror was a secret only she should have known. A wave of panic washed over Furina, followed by a tidal wave of social death. Kenji knew her true identity. Thinking back to her grand, dramatic introduction just moments ago, she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. She was so embarrassed her toes could have carved a new palace of Mermonia out of the floor. Miss Pink Elf, do you know things about me too, Kenji? Elysia was a little curious. She wanted to know if they ultimately won their war against the Honkai. Star Forger, Elysia, are you currently in the previous era, or are you in the Elysian realm? Miss Pink Elf, previous era. The smile on Elysia's face slowly faded. That single phrase told her everything. Her era had failed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called the previous era. As for the Elysian realm, she didn't know what that was. It hadn't been built yet. Star Forger, so you must be with the fire moths. Which Hairsker have you just defeated? Kenji suddenly remembered that in the selfie Elysia had sent, she didn't have her distinctive elf-like ears. That meant she hadn't undergone the mantis surgery yet. Miss Pink Elf, we just defeated the second hairsker. Kenji, did we fail? Star Forger, yes and no. But for simplicity's sake, let's just say yes. Your civilization will be wiped out by the final hairsker. Only a few will survive to see the next era. And you sacrificed yourself. Lady Justice, Elysia sacrificed herself. Furina, you're over 500 years old, Kenji thought. Elysia in the Fire Moth era is just a young woman. Furina had grown quite fond of Elysia. Chatting with her was always a joy, and it seemed to soothe the erosion of her 500 years of loneliness. Star Forger, Elysia chose to sacrifice herself. She used her own life to change the nature of the hairskers in the next era. Lady Justice, wait, why would Elysia do that? What do the hairskers have to do with her? Elysia placed a hand over her heart. At that moment, something clicked into place. Miss Pink Elf, Kenji. I am a hairsker, aren't I? Elysia had sensed from a young age that she was different. When they fought the hairsker of the void, she had felt a strange sense of familiarity. When she personally delivered the final blow, she felt an overwhelming sadness, as if she had killed her own kind. Lady Justice, what? Elysia is a hairsker. Furina remembered Elysia telling her that hairskers were evil monsters that destroyed cities and killed humans. But she could tell, deep down, that Elysia wasn't that kind of person. Star Forger, it's because Elysia is a special hairsker, one who possessed humanity, that she decided to sacrifice herself. She wanted the hairskers who came after her to have humanity as well. Miss Pink Elf, and did I succeed? Star Forger, yes. You succeeded. In the next era, a hairsker just like you appeared. A hairsker who stands on the side of humanity. Miss Pink Elf, that's good. Then my sacrifice was meaningful. It wasn't in vain. God loves the world. And Elysia. Elysia loved humanity. Chapter 5, Toriko. Ghost of the Uchiha, was it worth it? Even the usually stoic Madara Uchiha couldn't help but ask. Having lived through the wars of the ninja world, he had seen the ugliest, most disgusting depths of human nature. To see someone as pure as Elysia was a first for him. Miss Pink Elf, if my sacrifice can change the hairskers who come after me, and inspire them to fight for all that is beautiful in the world, then yes, it's meaningful. Miss Pink Elf, but for now, this chat group is so miraculous. Maybe I can find the power to defeat the Honkai without having to sacrifice myself. If she could live and still defeat the Honkai, she wasn't foolish enough to choose death. There were still so many things she wanted to do. Ghost of the Uchiha, do you have any information about my world? Star Forger, of course. In the world of Shinobi, you, Madara Uchiha, are known as the Ghost of the Uchiha. Star Forger, you and the god of Shinobi, Hashirama Senju, were the best of friends. In the end, you left the village Ucio founded, Konoha, because of a difference in ideals. Ghost of the Uchiha, Hashirama and I were rivals who shared a mutual respect. We were not best friends. Madara was seeing red. That was a blatant slander. Besides, Hashirama was a married man. Known as a legendary ghost, his composure was naturally strong. He quickly calmed himself. It was true that he had left Konoha because of his disagreements with that fool, Hashirama. Ghost of the Uchiha, do you know the origin of my nickname in your world? I have never once danced. Madara had been in the chat group for a while but could never figure out the reasoning behind his strange title in Kenji's world. Star Forger, in a future battle, you will grab a weak-willed ninja by the throat and ask him, will you dance, too? The line is so iconic it became your thing. Madara was speechless. That did sound like something he would say. It had a certain flair. Well, at least he finally knew where the nickname came from. It could have been worse. Star Forger, we'll have plenty of time to chat later. Something's come up on my end, so I'll be logging off for now. Master, I'm planning to leave tomorrow, Kenji said, having sought out Jiro to announce his decision. Are you ready? Jiro asked with a smile. Kenji nodded. Having awakened his incredibly powerful gourmet cells and possessing the golden finger of the chat group, he was filled with confidence. The 3-year pact is fulfilled. The Dragon King rises. Go on, then, Jiro said. If you run into any trouble you can't handle and can't find me, go find your master Setsuno, or your Grandmaster Ichiryu? Jiro's whereabouts were always uncertain, he wandered wherever the finest sake could be found. He had only stayed put for the last 3 years to teach Kenji, only venturing out when his liquor supply ran dry. Kenji nodded. His master's partner and senior were both titans in their own right. Here, take this unlimited black card. Your Grandmaster Ichiryu gave it to me. I have no use for it, so you can spend it however you like, Jiro said, pulling out a sleek black card. When Jiro wanted a knocking tool, he just asked Ichiryu. When he wanted a top-tier ingredient, he went and caught it himself in the gourmet world. Kenji accepted it. He would definitely need money, and this would save him the time of having to trade ingredients for cash. As for your graduation gift, I've left it with Setsuno. I'll let her know. If you run into her, she'll give it to you. The next morning, Kenji left the mountain range he had called home for 3 years, heading toward the city in the direction Jiro had pointed out. At the entrance to Gourmet Town, a hub of culinary architecture, Kenji had a chance encounter with someone he hadn't expected to see so soon. It was one of the 4 heavenly kings, Toriko. His physique was immense, standing at 2.2 meters tall. He had short blue hair and 3 distinct, claw-like scars running from the corner of his left eye to his ear. This was the protagonist of Toriko, a man with 3 demons residing inside him, the son of the gourmet god Acacia. Although Toriko held the renowned title of a heavenly king, his current power level was still a far cry from the world's top-tier fighters. His gourmet cells hadn't evolved much yet due to a lack of high-level ingredients. At this stage, a beast with a capture level of 20 or 30 could still give him a tough fight. He's strong. As Kenji noticed Toriko, Toriko certainly noticed him. Instinct told him that Kenji was no simple passerby, he radiated a dangerous aura. Nice to meet you, Toriko, Kenji said with a friendly smile. If he had to fight Toriko right now, he wouldn't even need to use his full strength. Following his master's example, Kenji had used his knocking skills to seal a significant portion of his power. The strength he left unsealed was enough to handle beasts up to capture level 40 or 50. He could always release the seals when he faced a truly strong opponent. For now, he could enjoy the fun of playing the underdog. And you are? Toriko asked, searching his memory. He didn't recognize Kenji, and he figured he would have at least heard rumors about a powerhouse like him. Kenji. Just a passing-by gourmet hunter. Kenji introduced himself. As Jiro's disciple, Gourmet Hunter was certainly one of his titles. Kenji, hey? I'll remember that. Toriko nodded. It was always wise to remember the names of the strong. Making a new friend couldn't hurt. Kenji had wanted to meet the 4 heavenly kings eventually, and Toriko's bold and straightforward personality seemed perfect for a friend. So, Kenji, what brings you here? I need to find someone to build me a house. I don't have a place to live yet. Is that so? I know a reliable architect. Come with me, Toriko said with a grin. Kenji agreed. Toriko would definitely have better connections. Smiles Food Architect Firm. Toriko, is that you? A woman with her hair in a bun asked, rolling her eyes as she saw him. Is your house gone again? Toriko was a regular customer, but the man with him was a new face. Is Smile around? My friend needs a house built, Toriko called out. Yo, Toriko. Long time no see. It's been a while, a man said, stepping forward. It was Smile, a first-class gourmet architect. He was surprised to see Toriko. It was the first time Toriko had gone so long without needing a rebuild. Given Toriko's appetite, his candy house was usually eaten into oblivion in no time. Hello, sir. Where would you like to build your house? Smile asked Kenji. Hey, Kenji, there's nobody living near my place. Want to set up shop there? Toriko offered. Sure. Kenji nodded. The scenery in the wilderness was nice, and getting into the city wasn't too much trouble. Having a neighbor he knew meant he could drop by from time to time. Are you sure you want to build near Toriko's place? Smile asked. He had built Toriko's house countless times and knew the area was in the wild, teeming with gourmet beasts. It wasn't exactly a low-risk neighborhood. That's the spot. All right, if you're sure. As for the architectural style, would you like a candy house? It's Toriko's favorite. Smile figured that since Kenji was friends with a glutton like Toriko, he might share similar tastes. No, thanks. A candy house isn't durable enough. Use the strongest building materials you have, Kenji said, not wanting to have his house rebuilt every other week. You can use food-based materials for the interior decorations, though. No problem. Smile's face lit up with a grin, and his gaze toward Kenji became much friendlier. Now this is a proper client. Chapter 6, Sharing is Caring. The environment around Toriko's home was pleasant. There were no extreme climates or difficult terrains. While it was far from the hustle and bustle of the city, it was a perfectly habitable place. Kenji casually captured a few delicious ingredients and, using the chat group's sharing function, sent them to Alicia and the others. Miss Pink Elf, potato chips in the shape of butterflies, and they can fly. Alicia was stunned. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed such a creature was real. A certain someone immediately came to mind. Grabbing the butterfly chips, Alicia went to find her. She would definitely be interested in this. Alicia, you'd better have a good reason for bothering me, or you won't like the consequences, Mobius said, her tone sharp as she glared at the annoying pink-haired woman. Hee, Mobius, look at this, Alicia chirped, not bothered in the slightest as she presented the potato chip butterfly. Mobius rubbed her eyes. What was she seeing? Flying potato chips? Had all the recent all-nighters finally made her lose her mind? She had seen plenty of honkai beasts, but a butterfly made of potato chips was a first. This demanded immediate research. Alicia, this is mine now. Mobius snatched it and began to dissect it in an instant, but she quickly froze. Where are the organs? The tissues? This completely upended Mobius's understanding of biology. Even honkai beasts had organs, but this strange butterfly chip had no such structures. It was composed entirely of food. Its wings were potato chips, and its core was a ball of dipping sauce, yet it could fly. It was a puzzle that she, a genius in the field of biology, couldn't begin to solve. So what the hell is this thing? Alicia, where did you get this? Mobius demanded. She had a strong feeling this wasn't a creature from Earth. No matter how a creature evolved, it couldn't possibly evolve into literal food. You'll have to guess. Alicia said, putting on an air of mystery. A dark expression crossed Mobius's face. Guess my foot. So you won't tell me? Just wait. I'll pry that mouth of yours open eventually. The allure of such a unique creature was irresistible to Mobius. Meanwhile, Madara Uchiha stared at the mushroom pudding in his hand, momentarily stunned. Was his Rinnegan playing tricks on him? Could mushrooms really evolve into something like this? What a truly bizarre world. Tth this is. In the palace of Mermonia, Furina's jaw dropped as she looked at the cloud of cotton candy that was as tall as she was. She had never seen such a massive piece of cotton candy in her life. Her curiosity about Kenji's world grew even stronger. Ooh, it feels so nice. Unable to resist, Furina hugged the giant confection. The texture wasn't sticky at all, it was perfectly dry and incredibly soft, like the highest quality down feathers. It's so sweet and delicious. Furina loved sweets, and the taste of cotton candy from a naturally grown cotton candy tree was simply divine. She took a bite, and a blissful smile spread across her face. Knock, knock, knock. Lady Furina. The Prime Minister no, wait Nouvelette knocked before entering the room. The stoic Ihudex's brow furrowed slightly. Furina hadn't gone out, so where did this enormous cotton candy come from? Furthermore, he was fairly certain that you couldn't buy cotton candy of this size anywhere in Teyvat. Oh, Nouvelette. Would you like a bite? It's very sweet, Furina offered. I shall pass, Lady Furina. Please, enjoy yourself, Nouvelette replied, shaking his head. He preferred to savor fine waters, his interest in desserts was minimal. Kenji. I caught lunch. Want to eat together? It's a crab pig, Toriko called out, a plump pig with 6 legs and striped markings slung over his shoulder. Sounds great, Kenji replied, nodding. He wouldn't have to prepare his own lunch. He saw no reason to be polite. The crab pig had a capture level of 8. It was named for the distinct crab-like flavor found in its meat. After cleaning it out, they didn't use any seasoning. They simply hung the entire pig over a fire to roast. A mouth-watering aroma soon filled the air as glistening fat dripped into the flames. They ate it layer by layer, carving off the cooked outer meat as it crisped up. As expected of a crab pig. The sweet flavor of high-quality crab meat and the delicate taste of pork are perfectly fused. The texture is so rich and complex. This is delicious. Toriko declared, devouring a steak-sized piece in a single bite, displaying the voracious appetite of a true glutton. It really is good. Pork that tastes like crab. Kenji agreed, impressed. So Kenji, I'm curious. Who are you affiliated with? Toriko asked between bites. He had racked his brain, but Kenji didn't seem to be connected to anyone he knew. Was he some kind of independent powerhouse? Toriko was well aware of his own current strength. Among the powerhouses of the human world, he probably wouldn't even rank in the top 20, let alone in the brutally dangerous gourmet world. The masters who could survive there had to be terrifyingly strong. I have ties to the Ego, Kenji said with a smile. His Master Jiro was the disciple brother of Ichiryu, the president of the Ego. So, by extension, Kenji was naturally connected to them. The Ego? Are you a gourmet hunter? They raised. Toriko's eyebrows shot up. He knew a bit about the Ego's inner workings, having spent part of his childhood in one of their biotope gardens. However, despite his close ties, his knowledge wasn't comprehensive, mainly because he was too lazy to look into it. He much preferred the life of a gourmet hunter and wasn't a fan of the Ego's research divisions. I'm not an Ego member myself, but my master has deep roots with them, Kenji clarified. Haha, I see. Well, if you're connected to the Ego, then I can relax a bit, Toriko said with a laugh. Kenji's mouth twitched slightly. If only you knew. Many of the Ego's top executives were already under the control of Neo and Joie, including the vice president. Of course, the situation wasn't quite as bad as some fictional spy agencies where nearly everyone was a double agent working for a different country. The Ego was compromised, but not a complete farce. Ichiryu knew there were moles, but even he probably couldn't identify all of them. Joie's food-based mind control was terrifyingly effective, almost anyone weaker than him fell victim to it. Tepi was one of the few who had somehow managed to break free. Midori's Gourmet Corp was also riddled with neo-agents. They were hidden perfectly because many hadn't started as spies, they were turned by Joie, making them impossible to predict. For now, none of this is my problem, Kenji thought. He was still flying under the radar. The only people who knew of his existence were Toriko and Smile. Unless Jiro had mentioned him to Ichiryu, even the Ego president was unaware of the rampaging beast's new disciple. I can give Ichiryu a heads up when I meet him later, Kenji mused. That should give Joie a nice headache. Chapter 7, Sparring with Toriko. While Kenji soared through the air, Toriko was stuck paddling a small raft across the river. The ability to fly was exceedingly rare in this world, a skill mastered by only a select few. The last person I saw fly without a mount was President Ichiryu, Toriko said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. Ichiryu, the man who had taught him and the other kings, was unbelievably strong. He wondered how wide the gap between them was now. The four of them had challenged Ichiryu several times, but each time they were defeated with ease. For Ichiryu, fighting the four heavenly kings was like playing with children. President Ichiryu of the Ego, a true titan, Kenji mused aloud. I look forward to the day I get to meet him. Toriko, plenty of skilled fighters know how to run on water. Have you never learned? Kenji asked. The principle was simple, just before one foot was about to sink, you had to step with the other, repeating the process to move freely across the water's surface, similar to how a basilisk lizard runs. Jiro had taught him the technique, it wasn't some secret art, just something anyone with a solid foundation of strength could learn with a bit of practice. Sounds like a hassle, Toriko said, shaking his head. Seems like a waste of time. To him, that time was better spent discovering and capturing new gourmet beasts. He has no idea, Kenji thought. The skill was practically a god-tier technique. Once mastered, it allowed for incredible speed and agility on water, letting you change direction on a dime. Ichiryu knew the skill, but since Toriko and the others never asked, he never thought to teach them. Enough talk. Let's do this, Kenji, Toriko said, shifting into a fighting stance. He let out a battle cry, and the phantom image of the red demon materialized behind him. An overwhelming wave of intimidation washed over the area, the kind a predator exudes when it spots its prey. It was an pressure born from his gourmet cells, capable of paralyzing any creature weaker than himself. The appearance of the red demon's phantom meant Toriko was getting serious. He knew he couldn't afford to be careless against an opponent like Kenji. Kenji, however, stood there with a relaxed confidence. He was curious to see what the current Toriko was capable of, so he decided to let him make the first move. Fork. Toriko lunged forward, his right hand tensed like a steel fork as he jabbed it toward Kenji. It was one of his signature moves, possessing astonishing piercing power. Your speed is a bit slow, Toriko. Kenji shook his head, seeing the numerous openings in Toriko's form. It was clear Toriko hadn't fought many skilled human opponents. His techniques were highly effective against large, slow-moving beasts, but not against a nimble fighter. Bang! Kenji flicked a kick against Toriko's shin. Charging at full speed, Toriko's body instantly lost its balance. He crashed face first into the ground, and the sheer piercing force of his own fork caused his entire right arm to plunge deep into the earth. Chopsticks. Kenji materialized a pair of chopsticks shimmering with starlight from his own gourmet cell energy. With a deft movement, he plucked Toriko out of the ground as if he were picking up a piece of food. Chopsticks! Toriko exclaimed, surprised. He had never seen this technique before. Ichiryu hadn't displayed it in years, not since his battle with Midora long ago. Is it so strange? Kenji shrugged. It's just a creation of condensed energy, same as your fork and knife. He could create a fork and knife too, but he found chopsticks to be far more convenient. I guess so, Toriko conceded. You're incredibly agile, Kenji. Kenji nodded. I trained with Jiro. Although his master never used his full strength, sparring with him had given Kenji combat experience far beyond that of most people. Let's settle this in one move. You're no match for me right now, Toriko, Kenji stated plainly. The four heavenly kings had largely been left to grow on their own. Ichiryu rarely taught them his own specific techniques, letting them learn through their own experiences. Kenji, on the other hand, had learned most of Jiro's skills. Aside from his lower raw power, he was practically a miniature knocking master. Fine by me, Toriko replied, not a hint of anger in his voice. He knew Kenji was right. He clenched his right fist, the muscles in his arm swelling as a staggering amount of energy gathered at his knuckles. Oh! Kenji's interest was piqued. Nail punch, is it? It was another of Toriko's go-to techniques, a punch that delivered multiple impacts simultaneously, like a nail being hammered repeatedly, sending devastating force deep into the target. 3-hit nail punch. Having gathered his power, Toriko unleashed the terrifying punch. The very air seemed to tremble under its force. Boom! Kenji slowly reached out his right hand and caught Toriko's 3-hit nail punch. The triple impact, for all its thunderous noise, landed with a whimper. Kenji's body, fortified by the power of the Star Forger, easily neutralized the force. His raw physical strength was one of his greatest assets. What? Toriko was dumbfounded. While the 3-hit nail punch wasn't his absolute strongest move, for Kenji to catch it so casually without even taking a step back, it was completely demoralizing. Not bad power, Kenji commented. My turn, Toriko. A grin spread across his face. Time for you to fly. Kenji's fist, the size of a small melon, connected with Toriko's face. Toriko cried out in pain as a stream of blood shot from his nose. He was launched into the air, tracing a graceful parabola across the sky. Splash! Toriko landed far away, crashing into a fizzy lake of soda, which bubbled furiously at the impact. The match was decided. Toriko had lost. Sputter. Cough, cough. Toriko surfaced, still dazed from the hit that had sent him flying. You really need to eat more high-level ingredients, Toriko, Kenji called out to him. At your current level, you're still too weak. With his current strength, Toriko wouldn't survive a single day in the gourmet world. While the human world was relatively safe, it couldn't offer the same potential for growth. So there's always someone stronger out there, Toriko said as he swam back to shore. His attitude was positive, showing no signs of being discouraged by the defeat. I admit I lost. Kenji, with your kind of strength, have you been to the gourmet world? Toriko asked curiously. His dream was to venture there, to taste its legendary ingredients, especially his own life's goal, God. I haven't, Kenji said. Even with my strength, I'm still not quite ready for it. His power was respectable, but he had no experience with the extreme environments there. Venturing into the gourmet world unprepared would be asking for trouble. He could probably handle the outer regions, but he had no intention of setting foot in the territories of the Eight Kings anytime soon. I've got to go. I still need to gather ingredients for my house's interior, Kenji said. With that, he took to the skies and flew away. Toriko was left standing by the lake, deep in thought. Just how terrifying is the gourmet world? Even Kenji, who was so much stronger than him, felt he wasn't ready to survive there. Chapter 8, Miss Pink Elf's Scream. Chocolate hills, marshmallow boulders, candy corals, donut plains. In just one day, Kenji had gathered a small mountain of ingredients over 3 meters high. This was more than enough for his interior decorations. He had no desire for a fully edible house like Toriko's. Mr. Kenji, we're here, Smile announced, arriving with his construction crew. A fleet of dump trucks was loaded with top-of-the-line building materials. Smile, will these ingredients be enough for the interior? Kenji asked. More than enough. Smile did a quick mental calculation. It was plenty. In fact, there would probably be some left over. Toriko usually gathered several times more ingredients than this for his own houses. What's the estimated completion time? 1 to 2 months. If you're in a hurry, Mr. Kenji, we could probably finish it in about a month, Smile added, though it would require him to call in more workers. There's no rush. 2 months is fine, Kenji said. He planned on going out to hunt for more ingredients anyway. After living in a cave for 3 years, spending a couple of months in a tent was no problem at all. Smile nodded, pleased. These were the kinds of clients he liked. No nagging, no complaining about every little detail until his head spun. All right, let's get to work. The gourmet construction crew sprang into action. This was a job for professionals. Kenji's only role was to state his requirements. Hey, Smile, build me a house after this, will ya? Toriko said, munching on a giant donut he was holding. He had gone back to check on his place only to find his candy house had vanished without a trace. Even the ground it stood on was licked clean. He'd been away for too long. Toriko, why can't you just build a normal house like Mr. Kenji? Smile sighed, completely exasperated with his regular client. He remembered that the record for one of Toriko's houses disappearing was half a day. He had just left the construction site, and that very afternoon, Toriko called him to come back and build a new one. I'm used to the candy house. Money's not an issue, Toriko said, shaking his head and refusing Smile's suggestion. He gathered the materials himself. Smile just had to do the construction. The cost was a drop in the bucket for Toriko. Even if he ran out of cash, he had plenty of ways to get more, like capturing a rare gourmet beast to sell. I think you're just a glutton, Smile grumbled under his breath. Used to it, my foot. You're just not used to waking up without a house to eat. Ah, whatever. Toriko paid well, so he wouldn't press the issue. Honkai Impact, the previous era. The food in Kenji's world is so delicious, Elysia sighed, sitting on her bed and nibbling on a small cake that had grown naturally on a tree, with no artificial additives. Ever since Kenji first shared some food, she found herself asking him for more from time to time. Kenji was generous, these ingredients were free for the taking in his world. Time for today's weigh-in. Let's see. Wait, this has to be a mistake. Elysia stepped onto her pink scale. As the numbers flickered and finally settled, her voice began to tremble. She squeezed her eyes shut, hoping it was just a hallucination. Oh no. 55.8 kilograms. She had gained a full kilogram. Elysia placed a hand on her stomach. It definitely felt a little plumper than before. Ah! The devastating realization caused the pink-haired beauty to let out a piercing shriek. I've gotten fat. No. Thankfully, her room was soundproof. Otherwise, the ceiling of the fire moth dormitory would have been blown clean off. It was also a good thing Mobius wasn't around, or she would have undoubtedly chimed in with a smug, "You've gained weight again, Elysia." Crack. Elysia whipped out a pink magical staff and performed a physical data deletion on the electronic scale. Such incriminating evidence could not be allowed to exist in this world. Frustrated, she opened the chat group and fired off a message. Miss Pink Elf, you bad man, Kenji. You have to take responsibility for this. At Starforger. Starforger. Lady Justice, Kenji, did you get Elysia pregnant? Focalus was a gossip fiend. Having lived for over 500 years, she certainly knew what it meant when a girl told a guy to take responsibility. Kenji was completely baffled. What on earth was Alicia talking about? What was he supposed to be responsible for? Seeing Focalor's message, Alicia's expression stiffened. In a way, she had gotten a bigger belly. Star Forger, alright, I'll take responsibility. Kenji just rolled with it. It wasn't like he was losing anything. Two could play at this game. Now it was Alicia's turn to be confused. Is that how this is supposed to go, buddy? Miss Pink Elf, wait, aren't you supposed to ask what happened? Star Forger, fine, go ahead. I'm listening. Miss Pink Elf, Kenji, the food you sent was just too delicious, and I couldn't help myself. Alicia was too embarrassed to admit she had gained weight. It was utterly mortifying. Star Forger, oh, I get it. You got fat, Alicia. Alicia clenched her pink fists. Did he have to be so blunt? Doesn't he know I have a reputation to maintain? Star Forger, I remember your weight was 54.8 kilograms. Rounding up, that's 55 kilograms. So how many kilograms did you gain? Miss Pink Elf, you are not allowed to round up. Oh. Star Forger, you know, you can buy a potion in the chat group shop that prevents weight gain. By the way, Alicia, aren't you a hairsker? Can hairskers even get fat? Kenji was genuinely confused. Wasn't Honkai energy supposed to be all-powerful? Losing weight should be a piece of cake. Just use the Honkai energy. Miss Pink Elf, well. Alicia felt a wave of embarrassment. Right. She was a hairsker. Adjusting her own body weight should be no problem at all. Authority of origin activate. Her weight instantly returned to 54.8 kilograms. The hairsker powers really are useful. It was the first time she had ever been so fond of her hairsker authority. No, she absolutely adored the authority of origin. Kenji figured it out. Alicia probably hadn't been training or fighting much lately, instead choosing to lounge around and enjoy high-calorie foods. Fontaine. Focalors patted her own stomach. No extra weight. For the past 500 years, she had eaten small desserts every single day. The sugar brought her a fleeting sense of joy, a momentary escape from the numb feeling of playing the role of a god. She had eaten plenty of the delicious food Kenji had sent, but her figure remained as perfect as ever. Ghost of the Uchiha, Kenji, I have a question. In the end, did my plan succeed? Kenji saw the question and knew the answer immediately. Of course it didn't. In fact, it ended with Black Zetsu giving him a heartfelt, and heart-ripping, speech. Chapter 9, Madara, son of a Star Forger. Madara, may I ask, are you currently expired? Ghost of the Uchiha. A muscle in Madara's cheek twitched uncontrollably. This kid has some strange manners, he thought. At least he said may I ask. Ghost of the Uchiha, not yet. But I'm half dead, clinging to life with the energy from the Gedo statue. Madara let out a soft sigh. To think that he, the ghost of the Uchiha who once dominated battlefields and struck fear into the hearts of nations, was now reduced to this pathetic, withered state. It was a bitter irony. Star Forger, so you're old man Madara. The plan you wanted to ask about is the Eye of the Moon plan, right? Ghost of the Uchiha, yes. Through the infinite Tsukuyomi, the entire world will be cast into a genjutsu, achieving true peace. There will be no more war, no more suffering. Madara didn't bother hiding anything. Kenji clearly knew most of it already, so there was no point in being coy. Miss Pink Elf, trapping everyone in an illusion. Miss Pink Elf, a fake life without sorrow or pain, can you even call that living? Is that kind of peace truly meaningful? Alicia strongly disapproved of the plan. It was robbing humanity of its future. That wasn't how things should be. Little did she know that in the next era, the Stigma project that Kevin planned to execute was just as terrible. Ghost of the Uchiha, I have seen enough of war. Hashirama's ideals could never bring true peace to the ninja world. Ghost of the Uchiha, besides the infinite Tsukuyomi, is there any other way? Star Forger, oh, there totally is. Star Forger, I think Hashirama was an idiot for distributing the tailed beasts. You too, with your Susanoo-clad wood golem, could have steamrolled the other four great nations and unified the entire ninja world. Whether it would fall apart again in the future is another question, but at least you would have prevented several great ninja wars. Madara's eyes lit up at the suggestion. He felt like he had found a kindred spirit. He had clad the 9 tails in his Susanoo before, but never a wood golem. The thought was thrilling. What a heart-pounding combo! Ghost of the Uchiha, he's right. If Hashirama and I had joined forces, how could the other 4 nations have even hoped to dance? Ghost of the Uchiha, I think things should have gone differently back then. Ghost of the Uchiha, Hashirama was too soft. If mercy was effective, the great ninja wars would never have happened in the first place. Star Forger, he wasn't so merciful when he entered Sage mode and dropped a giant 1,000-armed Buddha statue on your head. Ghost of the Uchiha, ahem. He couldn't argue with that. When he saw the Sage art would release, true several thousand hands, he had been completely stunned. He never expected Hashirama to have such a move. The Susanoo armor on his 9 tails was shattered to pieces. And that final backstab, it was a vicious blow. If it weren't for Izanagi, he would have been sent straight to the Pure Land on the spot. Star Forger, but back to the point. I regret to inform you that the peace you envision will never come to pass. Your entire plan is a long-conceived deception. Star Forger, the Uchiha stone tablet in the Naka Shrine has been altered. It's not the original version written by the Sage of 6 Paths. Ghost of the Uchiha, who altered it? Madara's ancient face darkened visibly. If that was true, then everything he had done was nothing but a cruel joke. Star Forger, did you, by any chance, create a manifestation of your will called Black Zetsu? Ghost of the Uchiha, I did. Star Forger, Black Zetsu is not your will. He's the will of the Sage of 6 Paths Mother, a creation of Yin-Yang Release who has been alive for a very, very long time. Star Forger, he was the one who altered the stone tablet. His goal was to manipulate an Uchiha into awakening the Rinnegan and casting the infinite Tsukuyomi in order to resurrect his mother, Kagaya Tsutsuki, the rabbit goddess, who was sealed in the moon. Star Forger, Madara, your immense talent and potential to awaken the Rinnegan made you the perfect pawn for Black Zetsu. Star Forger, in the future, at the very moment the infinite Tsukuyomi succeeds, the Black Zetsu you trust will literally stab you in the back and rip your heart out. Ghost of the Uchiha, son of a... that little bastard! How dare he! Madara was incandescent with rage. He had been nothing more than a tool for Black Zetsu, a comical clown in a grand play. The irony was suffocating. So he's going to backstab me? Literally? While I was fighting for my life against Hashirama, that little lump of coal was just spying on us, wasn't he? Using the same method Hashirama used against me. Good. Just perfect. A sneak attack from Hashirama, he could almost understand, chalking it up to disbelief. But Black Zetsu? Who the hell was he to dare backstab him? From a world away, Kenji could almost feel Madara's fury. He hoped the old man wouldn't just have a rage-induced stroke and die right then and there. Miss Pink Elf, Mr. Madara's story sounds rather tragic. Lady Justice, it really does. Having played the role of a god for 500 years, Furina could empathize. If she were to find out at the very end that all her sacrifices and suffering had been for nothing, her spirit would shatter completely. The me in the mirror, I hope you can succeed, she thought. I hope you can break the prophecy's curse. If not, I'll have to rely on power from beyond this world. The chat group. Ghost of the Uchiha, are you saying Black Zetsu and the Sage of 6 Paths are brothers? Madara had calmed down slightly. Though he'd never seen the Sage of 6 Paths, he doubted he looked like a slimy, black blob. Star Forger, not exactly. Black Zetsu was a last-ditch creation Kagaya made just before her 2 sons sealed her away. Star Forger, Kagaya had 2 sons, the Sage of 6 Paths and the ancestor of the Hyuga clan. The mother and sons had a falling out, and the boys ended up sealing her. Ghost of the Uchiha, what a dysfunctional family. A picture of motherly love and filial piety. Star Forger, Black Zetsu doesn't have the sage's power, so he could only operate from the shadows. It's likely he instigated many of the wars throughout history. You and Hashirama are also connected to the sage's 2 sons. Ghost of the Uchiha, are you saying Hashirama and I are their descendants? Star Forger, while the Senju and Uchiha are indeed descendants of the sage, you and Hashirama are special cases. The sage's 2 sons, Indra and Azura, have passed away, but their souls and chakra continue to reincarnate through the generations. Ghost of the Uchiha, so you're telling me I'm the reincarnation of this? Indra. Madara's mind was reeling. What the hell was this? It was too chaotic. Today I learned that I am not myself? Who am I, really? I honestly don't know anymore. Star Forger, it's not a complete reincarnation. You likely have Indra's soul within you, but it's probably dormant. It won't turn you into Indra, but it influences your personality and power. Star Forger, Madara, have you never noticed that you and Hashirama are exceptions within the Uchiha and Senju clans? Madara pondered this. It was true. They were both anomalies. His power far surpassed anyone else in the Uchiha clan, especially after he awakened the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Years had passed since he left Konoha, and still, no Uchiha had emerged who could even come close to his strength. In the Senju clan, Hashirama's power was in a league of its own. His wood release was practically a cheat code, putting him on a completely different level from everyone else. Chapter 10, the main story begins. Madara Uchiha logged off. The amount of information he had just received was overwhelming, and he needed time to process it all. As for that traitor, Black Zetsu, he would let him run free for a little while longer. Once he was ready, he would deal with him. Knowing that Black Zetsu would betray him, there was no way the decisive Madara would ever let him live. The slimy, black creature was cunning, and his ability to conceal himself was among the best in the ninja world. He couldn't afford to alert him. If Black Zetsu escaped, he might never get another chance to catch him. When he made his move, it had to be to eradicate him completely, root and stem. The infinite Tsukuyomi was a lie. Madara felt a sense of aimless drift. He had schemed for so long, all for the sake of peace, only to learn he was nothing but a pawn in Kagaya's plan to save herself. He needed to think, to figure out what to do next. The existence of the chat group had broadened his horizons considerably. The gourmet construction crew was incredibly efficient. The foundation of Kenji's house was already laid. He was excited to see the finished product. Yo, Kenji! You free anytime soon? Toriko walked over with a young man who stood at about 1.5 meters tall. Compared to both Toriko and Kenji, he was quite short. Kenji recognized him immediately. It was Komatsu, the protagonist with ridiculously good gourmet luck. His large nostrils had earned him the nickname Big Nose Komatsu, though in the later parts of the manga, his nose returned to a normal size. Hello, Mr. Kenji. My name is Komatsu, the young man said, introducing himself with a polite bow. Nice to meet you, Komatsu, Kenji replied, nodding before turning to Toriko. I'm free for now. What's up? It seemed the main storyline was about to begin. Haha, Komatsu here has commissioned me to capture a Gala Gator. I was wondering if you wanted to come along, Toriko said with a grin. The Gala Gator was a giant crocodile that reigned as the apex predator of the barren archipelago's ecosystem. A common Gala Gator had a capture level of 5, but a 300-year-old specimen could reach a capture level of 8, its flavor growing richer and more complex with age. A beast of this level was too much for ordinary military vehicles, only a skilled gourmet hunter was suited for the job. I've got nothing better to do. Count me in, Kenji agreed. An opportunity to enjoy a fine meal without having to do any of the work was not to be missed. He knew Toriko could handle a Gala Gator without any problem. Komatsu, you can head back to the gourmet hotel for now, Toriko said. Mr. Toriko, my superiors have asked me to accompany you to conduct an ecological survey of the Gala Gator, Komatsu said with a helpless expression. If he had a choice, he wouldn't want to go to such a dangerous place. What? You're coming with us? Toriko exclaimed in shock. He could tell that Komatsu was just an ordinary person, physically weaker than even a regular soldier. While there were no beasts on the barren archipelago with a capture level above 10, there were still countless creatures that could easily kill him. It's fine, Toriko. One more person won't make a difference, Kenji interjected. And I have a feeling Komatsu's gourmet luck is very strong. Someone with powerful gourmet luck could naturally avoid danger and attract fortune. In most situations, they could emerge unscathed, avoiding fatal injuries. Those like Joie, who could actively wield their luck, could even directly evade powerful attacks. Kenji's own gourmet luck was likely quite strong as well. Jiro had told him that his level of luck was rare on Earth, but Kenji himself didn't know the specifics. With the combined buffs of being a transmigrator, having a chat group, and possessing the power of the Star Forger, his luck was bound to be formidable. Gourmet luck. Toriko looked at Komatsu thoughtfully. He had heard President Ichiryu talk about it before, a mysterious, almost mystical force that was nevertheless very real. Fine, Toriko sighed. If you're not afraid of dying, then you can tag along tomorrow. Komatsu wanted to cry. Of course he was afraid of dying. He was a coward who had never even been on an adventure in the wild before. He had zero experience. The next morning, the trio arrived at the port. Komatsu carried a hunting rifle on his back, a small comfort that gave him a sense of security. He had yet to witness the true strength of Kenji and Toriko, otherwise, he would have known the gun was completely unnecessary. A standard firearm like that had very little stopping power against the creatures they were about to face. Toriko. Who are your friends? Aren't you going to introduce me? A man named Tom called out with a smile. He and Toriko were old friends. Tom handled the sale of most of the ingredients Toriko wanted to put on the market. This is Kenji, a gourmet hunter who's even stronger than me. And this is Komatsu, the head chef of the gourmet hotel, Toriko introduced them. A chef? Komatsu, are you sure you want to go to the barren archipelago? Kenji's presence only surprised Tom for a moment, but Komatsu's was genuinely baffling. This guy has guts, he thought. He could tell Komatsu was a chef with no combat ability. While there were strong chefs in the world, like the legendary Setsuno, Komatsu was clearly not one of them. What was he thinking, wanting to go to such a dangerous place? Why yes, I am, Komatsu stammered with an awkward laugh. Well, if you're mentally prepared, then hop on board. Tom had no objections. He was just the boatman. His job was to get them there. What happened after that was none of his business. The trio boarded the boat, and Tom started the engine. The vessel sped across the sea, cutting through the waves. Before long, the port was no longer visible behind them. In stark contrast to the nervous Komatsu, Kenji and Toriko were leisurely eating the bento boxes they had brought along. Both were confident in their abilities, the barren archipelago posed no threat to them. Kenji, when are you planning on heading to the gourmet world? Toriko asked nonchalantly as he munched on an almond-stuffed cabbage roll. Komatsu's ears perked up. He had never cooked an ingredient from the gourmet world, though he had heard stories. It was a vast, magical, and perilous land filled with unparalleled delicacies. Every year, countless gourmet hunters flocked there in search of adventure, but most never returned. I'm in no rush, Kenji said. But I'll definitely go before you do, Toriko. One had to be thoroughly prepared for the gourmet world. It was a place where beasts with capture levels in the hundreds or even thousands roamed. A nuclear bomb probably wouldn't even scratch a creature of that caliber. If you guys go to the gourmet world and bring back any ingredients, don't forget about me. Tom shouted, poking his head out of the cockpit with a grin. We can negotiate a good price, I'll make sure you're satisfied. Ingredients from the gourmet world fetched a much higher price than those from the human world. It was a simple matter of supply and demand, they were incredibly rare, and the few that made it to the market were always in short supply. You'll get your share, Toriko promised readily. They had worked together for years, and Tom was a trustworthy man. Kenji nodded in agreement. If he was going to sell, he would prefer to deal with people he knew. We're here. The only entrance to the barren archipelago, the Devil's Mouth. This is as far as I go, Tom announced. After navigating through a treacherous reef, Tom stopped the boat. He wasn't a gourmet hunter, so he had no intention of going any further. The trio disembarked and paddled a small raft through the gloomy, cave-like channel, entering the barren archipelago. Chapter 11, The Gala Gator. Roar. The roar of a great tiger shattered the tranquility of the forest, sending birds and beasts scattering in every direction. A massive, brownish-yellow tiger emerged from the trees, its eyes fixed on Kenji. Its long, sharp canines were like twin swords, and standing on its hind legs, it was over 3 meters tall. It was a barren tiger, and it had clearly mistaken Kenji for its next meal. Well now, it's just a little kitty, Kenji said with a calm smile. To him, a capture level 3 tiger was no different from a house cat. The taste of a barren tiger wasn't worth savoring, compared to a Gala gator, it was in a completely different league. Kenji began to walk slowly toward the tiger. A primal sense of danger flared in the beast's mind. "Ha, little kitty. Do I look like prey to you?" Kenji's smile was deceptively gentle. A hazy, indistinct phantom flickered into existence behind him. The faint echo of a majestic dragon's roar seemed to reverberate through the air, striking directly at the beast's very soul. This was the Dragon King's intimidation, a pressure that came from a higher order of life. The Baron Tiger instantly submitted, its aggressive snarls dying in its throat. Be a good mount and take us to the Gala Gator. Do that, and I'll let you go, Kenji said. Roar. At the mention of the Gala Gator, the Baron Tiger let out a terrified cry. It was deathly afraid of the 300-year-old monster. The only reason it was even hunting in this area was because the Gator's immense power had driven it from its own territory. If it didn't run, it would have ended up as the Gator's next meal. So you do know where it is, little kitty, Kenji chuckled. Thinking of refusing? You don't have a choice. Kenji slowly made a fist, the sound of his knuckles cracking echoing crisply in the quiet forest. Whimper. Feeling the palpable threat from Kenji, the Baron Tiger let out a submissive whine. A wise tiger knows when to submit. Such an obedient kitty, Kenji praised. Now, for dinner. Bayou. Kenji looked up and selected a croc pterosaur circling overhead. He fired a long-range knocking needle, and the creature's body instantly went rigid, plummeting to the ground. Kenji tied the prey to the Baron Tiger's back and returned to their campsite. Komatsu and Toriko were there, roasting a snake frog over a fire. What is that? It's a Baron Tiger. Komatsu shrieked. Hearing the heavy footsteps behind him, he turned around and came face to face with the predator. The color drained from his face instantly. Yo! No need to be scared. This little kitty is very well behaved, Kenji said, patting the Baron Tiger's back. The massive beast immediately lay down, docile as could be. You tamed it? Toriko asked, intrigued. Baron Tigers were notoriously feral beasts, taming one was no easy feat. It wasn't too much trouble, Kenji said nonchalantly. You could do the same with your gourmet demon's intimidation, Toriko. Or just use a bit of physical persuasion. A capture level 3 beast was nothing compared to the monsters of the gourmet world, which had capture levels in the hundreds. It was weaker than even a newborn beast from there. Are you sure it won't eat people? Komatsu gulped. He felt he wouldn't even be a toothpick for the Baron Tiger. His hunting rifle was useless. The Baron Tiger opened one eye and glanced at Komatsu. The chef was too scrawny, offering very little energy. He wasn't nearly as appetizing as the power-packed figures of Kenji and Toriko. Kenji's true body mass was far greater than it appeared, thanks to his food immersion ability storing vast amounts of energy without affecting his physique. Toriko weighed in at a solid 230 kilograms, also packed with energy. Komatsu, at only 51 kilograms, wouldn't even be worth the energy the tiger would expend chewing. Komatsu, I'll leave the cooking to you, Kenji said, gesturing to the croc pterosaur. With the head chef of a 5-star hotel present, there was no need for amateurs like him and Toriko to butcher the job. Leave it to me. Komatsu nodded, his professionalism taking over. A dish prepared by a professional chef was on another level entirely. The flavor was elevated, and it was undeniably much more delicious than anything the other two could have made. Kenji briefly considered finding his own chef partner in the future, but decided against it. Komatsu was a good fit, but teaming up with another guy felt a bit strange. He wouldn't be the one to break up the dynamic duo of Toriko and Komatsu. After a short rest, the group mounted the Baron Tiger and headed toward the Gala Gator's territory. Hey? Mr. Toriko, what's going on with all these beasts? Why are they all running away? Komatsu asked, diligently taking notes in his small notebook as part of his assigned survey. The Gala Gator's nesting ground is probably too dangerous for them, Toriko explained. This gator is several hundred years old, likely the highest capture level on the Baron Archipelago. It's at the top of the food chain. If the other animals don't run, they become its food. A gator this big must have a huge appetite, and if it keeps eating, it'll threaten all the other life on the island. As they neared a large lake, the signs of life vanished. Even the trees were bare and lifeless. You can go now, little kitty. Seeing the Baron Tiger's legs trembling with fear, Kenji knew it was terrified and didn't force it to stay. Roar! Receiving its royal pardon, the Baron Tiger bolted, disappearing in a cloud of dust. It had seen the Gala Gator before and knew what a terrifying monster it was. It's probably a threat to me, too, Komatsu whimpered, his face a mask of fear. Just leave it to me, Toriko said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. You stand back so you don't get hurt. A Gala Gator that had aged for several hundred years was sure to be incredibly delicious and rich in flavor. Splash! Suddenly, a massive commotion erupted from beneath the lake's surface. An enormous shadow, over 20 meters long, shot out of the water, its massive body crashing onto the shore. Ah! It's a swamp snake, Mr. Toriko, Mr. Kenji! Komatsu screamed, his face contorting into a cartoonish expression of terror. It had a capture level of 5, far beyond what any normal hunter could handle. It's already dead. And the culprit is this big guy, Kenji said, glancing at the massive bite mark on the swamp snake's body. A true monster from the lake had come ashore. The crocodile was immense, 18 meters long, over 4 meters tall, and weighing 14 tons. Its body was covered in a thick layer of hard scales, like a suit of armor. Leeches could be seen writhing among the teeth in its massive jaws. This was the Gala Gator. Over 300 years old, with a capture level of 8. It could destroy a military tank with ease. The sight of the beast petrified Komatsu, freezing him in place. Kenji grabbed him by the collar and moved him to a safe distance, out of the way of the impending battle. Toriko could handle this fight himself, he didn't need any help. HAAA! I finally found you, the Gala Gator. Toriko stared down his opponent, the phantom of the red demon appearing behind him, radiating an intimidation even greater than the Gator's. He began to rub his hands together, producing the sharp, metallic sound of a knife and fork scraping against each other. Chapter 12, Time to Eat. Bang! Startled by Toriko's intimidation, the Gala Gator seemed to fly into a rage. It slammed its powerful tail against the ground, cracking the earth beneath it. Despite its enormous size, the gator was incredibly agile. It launched itself into the air, lunging toward Toriko, its cavernous maw wide enough to swallow him whole. Mr. Toriko, look out! Komatsu screamed. Kenji already knew the outcome. From their earlier spar, he had a good grasp of Toriko's current strength. He could handle beasts up to capture level 30 or 40. A capture level 8 Gala Gator was an easy opponent. There was no need to worry. I give thanks to all the ingredients in this world. Toriko brought his hands together, his aura becoming perfectly calm as he offered a prayer to his food. Itadakimasu. Fork. Schlick. Toriko's left hand, shaped like a fork, effortlessly pierced the Gala Gator's thick scales. The beast's eyes bulged in pain. Knife. With another shout, Toriko's right hand became as sharp as a fine dining knife, chopping down on the gator's neck. Slice. The Gala Gator's head was cleanly severed, and blood gushed out like a fountain. The light in its eyes quickly faded. A demon! Komatsu stammered, so terrified by the red demon aura radiating from Toriko that he was frozen in place. Clang! Toriko clapped his hands together, once again producing the sound of metal on metal. He slowly retracted his aura and brought his hands together again. Thank you for the meal. You'll see this a lot if you hang around Toriko, Kenji said to Komatsu, his tone fatherly. You'll need to toughen up. But I have a job. Komatsu mumbled, scratching his head. He had to admit, though, a part of him was thrilled. Seeing all these ingredients in their natural, powerful state alongside Mr. Toriko was incredibly exciting. Komatsu, it's all yours now. Toriko said, turning around, his face a mask of pure anticipation. Hey, Mr. Toriko, you're drooling, Komatsu pointed out, deadpan. A literal waterfall of drool was pouring from Toriko's mouth. Komatsu was shocked. Is he even human? Mr. Toriko, please leave me 500 kilograms of the meat first. I need it for the commission. Right, no problem, Toriko nodded, carving off a large chunk and setting it aside. With their simple setup, grilling was the only option. But with Komatsu's skill and seasonings, the flavor was guaranteed to be top-notch. The portioned crocodile meat sizzled over the fire, releasing a tantalizing aroma as the fat rendered. Toriko's drool never stopped flowing. It smells amazing. The marbled fat is glistening like snowflakes, Toriko exclaimed, picking up a piece. Just admiring its beautiful color made him swallow hard. Let's eat. Toriko took a bite of a palm-sized steak. As he chewed, he let out a euphoric cry, so delicious. Since the portion for the banquet was already set aside, Komatsu also began to eat, his expression of pure bliss mirroring Toriko's. Delicious. Kenji grabbed a piece of roasted meat and devoured it. As he chewed, the sweet, rich fat melted in his mouth, yet the meat itself was perfectly chewy and firm, leaving a fragrant aftertaste. The flavor of the 300-year-old Gala Gator was incredibly deep and complex, refined by time. Star Forger, Gala Gator steak. Still hot. Kenji sent a piece of the steak to each of his 3 chat group members. Good food was meant to be shared. Miss Pink Elf, this is more fragrant than any beef I've ever had. Elysia licked her lips as the steak appeared before her. She was facing a new dilemma. After getting used to the incredible food Kenji sent, the meals in the Fire Moth cafeteria now tasted bland and uninspired. Her palate had been hopelessly spoiled. Oh well, eat first, worry later. Elysia took a bite, and her blue eyes immediately sparkled. So delicious. This is amazing. Lady Justice, wow, this is so good. It's even tastier than fowl. Furina and Madara were both extremely satisfied. They had never tasted an ingredient so exquisitely delicious. The entire Gala Gator, except for the portion set aside, was devoured down to the bone. Toriko leaned back, his stomach bulging, yet he still looked unsatisfied. His eyes drifted toward the meat reserved for the gourmet hotel. Mr. Toriko, you can't eat that piece. Komatsu cried, quickly standing in front of the meat to block it. If that was eaten, he would have nothing to deliver for the commission, and finding another Gala Gator wouldn't be easy. These leeches were in the Gator's mouth. Maybe you can take these back instead, Toriko said, casually picking up a disgustingly squirming leech from the ground. That's definitely not going to work. Komatsu's eyes went wide as he shook his head vigorously. What kind of suggestion is that? If he served those disgusting things, his career as a head chef would be over. All right, fine, Toriko conceded. He could live without a few hundred more kilograms. He lay back down, and his bulging stomach visibly shrank back to its normal size at a rapid pace. Komatsu was stunned. The elasticity was astonishing. How could someone eat so much without their stomach bursting, and then digest it all so quickly? Kenji, the Gala Gator was pretty good, right? Are you going to add it to your full-course menu's meat dish? Toriko asked. The flavor is decent, but the Gala Gator is still too common. You probably wouldn't choose it either, right? Kenji replied. He was sitting calmly, having eaten just as much as Toriko, but his stomach showed no signs of bloating. The food immersion skill, which could store vast amounts of energy, was incredibly convenient. You're right. It's good, but it's missing that special something, Toriko laughed, sitting up. There are so many delicious ingredients out there, I can't make a decision so rashly. Exactly, Kenji agreed. The dishes on my menu must be made from ingredients that are so delicious, you'll never forget them after a single bite. For example. Toriko's interest was piqued. He seemed to guess what Kenji's future goals were. I have to taste Acacia's full-course menu, to see if it's as amazing as they say, Kenji began, looking up at the vast, starry sky with anticipation. And beyond this planet, in the great sea of stars, there are countless other delicacies waiting for us. In this world, Earth's volume had expanded by 659 times. Even Acacia had likely not explored all of it, let alone the boundless universe. Toriko followed his gaze and smiled. Beyond Earth, that's an incredible ambition. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Just how delicious would food from other planets be? Kenji just smiled. The food in outer space had capture levels that started in the tens of thousands. Even the 8 kings of the gourmet world would likely struggle to survive out there. To even think about venturing into that cosmic dining hall, the most basic requirement would probably be to eat Earth's entire full-course menu and fully unlock the power of one's gourmet demon. Anything less would be a suicide mission. Chapter 13, The Disciples of Acacia. The next day, sensing that the Gala Gator's presence was gone, the beasts that had been forced to the outer edges of the archipelago began to cautiously return to their former territories. I'm sorry to trouble you, Mr. Toriko. Komatsu's small frame was no match for the half-ton slab of meat, so he had no choice but to ask Toriko for help. Kenji didn't offer to assist. He felt it was unnecessary, better to let Toriko and Komatsu strengthen their best bro bond. Who would have thought, Kenji mused, that Toriko would end up marrying Sunny's sister, Rin, in the end. Although Rin's feelings for Toriko were obvious to anyone with eyes, she had surprisingly little screen time in the grand scheme of things. What a shame, that I can't eat it, Toriko said with a look of pure regret. His incredibly sensitive sense of smell allowed him to pick up the special, tantalizing aroma wafting from the Gala Gator meat. Dame! You can't eat it, Komatsu said with a sigh. When they reached the shore, Tom was already waiting for them in his small boat. After their feast last night, Toriko had contacted him to arrange for a pickup this morning. Toriko. I'm surprised you captured the Gala Gator so quickly. Is there any extra? Tom asked hopefully. Sorry, Mr. Tom. Aside from the portion for the gourmet hotel, the rest has been eaten, Komatsu explained, shaking his head. Tom wore an expression that said, I knew it. Toriko's appetite was legendary. All right then. He sighed. Next time you get a good ingredient, don't forget my share. Gourmet City, the capital of cuisine. This bustling metropolis, home to 10-star hotels, saw a daily foot traffic of over 25 million people. It was a sea of people, a torrent of humanity so dense you had to rub shoulders just to walk normally. Next to a luxurious, castle-like building stood a low, single-story bungalow. It looked old and worn, a stark contrast to the grand structure beside it. But anyone in the know understood that this unassuming little shack was infinitely more prestigious than the castle. As the saying goes, a mountain's fame isn't in its height, but in the immortal who resides there. A simple sign above the door read Setsuno's Diner. The name of the living national gourmet treasure, Setsuno, was enough to make this diner extraordinary. If you wanted to eat here, even if you made a reservation right now, you'd be waiting at least 10 years unless you had serious connections. Setsuno only opened her diner whenever the mood struck her. Warm light spilled from the windows, carrying with it an intoxicating aroma. A crowd of people had gathered outside, their faces filled with blissful satisfaction from just smelling the air. The interior was simple and rustic, creating a warm and inviting dining atmosphere. Jiro, what did you call me here for this time? The few people currently sitting in Setsuno's diner were individuals who could make the world tremble with a single word. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. He had bronze skin and was wearing a simple plaid shirt made of what looked like cheap fabric. He had short yellow hair and a peculiar mustache, with ends so long they drooped past his chin and twitched on their own. This was the president of the Igo, Ichiryu, the first disciple of Acacia and one of the most powerful beings on earth. At the dawn of the Gourmet Age, Ichiryu founded the Igo to regulate the distribution of ingredients among nations. In the beginning, the Igo was under the jurisdiction of the United Nations. But within a decade, Ichiryu had led the Igo to independence, its influence and comprehensive power making it the de facto ruler of the era. He was responsible for establishing the 8 gourmet principles, the gourmet police, the isolation of the gourmet world, the capture level system, the Gourmet Research Institute, and the Gourmet ID system, among other beneficial measures. Even without using the power of his gourmet demon, Ichiryu was a top-tier global powerhouse. He stood at the pinnacle of the world, yet his diet was simple, often more modest than that of an average person. Right now, he was heartily eating a meal prepared by Setsuno. Sitting beside him was a short old man, his junior disciple, the knocking Master Jiro. Both were disciples of Acacia, each a legendary figure with monstrous strength. That's right, little Jiro. You seem awfully happy, Setsuno commented. Having been Jiro's partner for so long, she could read him like a book, and her curiosity was piqued. My disciple, Kenji, has graduated. And he's learned almost all of my skills, Jiro said with a wide, toothy grin. His words struck Ichiryu and Setsuno like a bolt of lightning. Jiro's strength was undeniably at the highest tier. If his sealed power were fully unleashed, there were few on earth who could defeat him. In the field of knocking, Jiro stood at the absolute apex of the pyramid. For someone to master nearly all his techniques, even if they hadn't reached Jiro's current level of power, they had to be a genius of staggering proportions. Ichiryu suddenly understood. Jiro had called him here just to show off. The thought made him chuckle. He felt no jealousy. While his relationship with their other brother, Midora, was currently hostile, the bond between the rest of them remained strong. Ichiryu hadn't taught the 4 heavenly kings many of his own advanced techniques. He didn't want them to become clones of himself, that would be a disservice to their potential. Furthermore, some of his skills, like Minority World, were simply too difficult for them to learn at their current level. Jiro's knocking and his other powerful moves were equally difficult to master. He was now intensely curious about this disciple of Jiro's. What kind of genius was he? Congratulations, little Jiro, Setsuno said, genuinely happy for him. Their grandson, Teppei, had started learning from Jiro but then ran off to become a gourmet reviver, which had infuriated both of them. To this day, she still gave Teppei the cold shoulder whenever she saw him. The thought that someone was now carrying on Jiro's legacy filled her with joy. Jiro, when did you get a disciple? How come I never heard a thing about it? Ichiryu asked curiously. Ichi, never mind you. Even I, his partner, never heard a word from little Jiro, Setsuno laughed. Little Jiro's disciple. She was quite curious about this Kenji. To receive such high praise from Jiro, he must be someone special. I wonder when I'll get to meet him. How exciting! About 3 years ago, Jiro explained. For the past 3 years, I've spent most of my time teaching Kenji. That's why I didn't tell you. Setsuno understood now. That was why Jiro's visits had become less frequent over the last few years. He was busy training his student. It seems you are very pleased with this young man, Kenji, Ichiryu said. Kenji will definitely surpass me, Jiro stated with a proud, confident nod. It won't be long before you all hear his name. Chapter 14, A Partner. Ichiryu looked forward to meeting this young genius, Kenji. If Toriko and the others were to meet him, it would surely light a fire under them. That would be a good thing. Having mastered all of Jiro's skills, Kenji could no longer be considered an ordinary gourmet hunter. He was likely already stronger than many of the old guard. He made a mental note to ask Kenji about joining Biotope Zero when the time was right. Little Jiro, Setsuno asked, does Kenji have a partner yet? She was Jiro's partner, and Ichiryu's was a red nitro. A gourmet hunter was responsible for capturing ingredients, while a chef was responsible for processing and cooking them to bring out their ultimate flavor. The two roles were complementary, a clear division of labor. Since Kenji was Jiro's disciple, he was like a nephew to her. Naturally, she was concerned about his future. No, he doesn't. He's had no contact with the outside world until now, so how could he have found one? Jiro said, shaking his head. It had been less than a year since he'd set out, finding a suitable partner so quickly was nearly impossible. A good partner wasn't someone you could just stumble upon. It required a true twist of fate. Speaking of partners, I have a promising young prospect in mind. I'll have them meet when the time is right, Ichiryu said with a smile. He had no worries about Kenji's future allegiance. As Jiro's disciple, he was part of their lineage. Perhaps one day, they would even fight side by side. Since you've already made arrangements, Ichi, I won't interfere, Setsuno said with a gentle laugh. She had been thinking of arranging for one of her own disciples to partner with Kenji, but since Ichiryu had spoken first, she wouldn't compete. You two handle it. By the way, that little cat's gourmet corp has been getting restless lately, Jiro said nonchalantly, having noticed their increased activity on his travels. At his words, both Setsuno and Ichiryu fell silent, a wistful look in their eyes. It seemed their old relationship with Midora could never be restored. All they had were memories. They wondered if they would ever have the chance to sit at the same table again. Now, if they were to run into him, an exchange of words would likely escalate into a full-blown battle. The gourmet eclipse will arrive within the next few years. The gourmet corp is bound to make a move, Ichiryu said with a sigh. This era belongs to the young ones. Let's give them a chance to shine, Jiro said cheerfully. He was eagerly anticipating his own disciples' performance. The old-timers like them were a bit too overpowered, but that was the advantage of having lived for several hundred years. Is there enough time? Setsuno couldn't help but ask. Toriko's generation was talented, but they were still too green. The time they had left to grow stronger was short. Haha, for now, we old folks are here to hold the line. Let's have faith in the youth, Ichiryu laughed. As long as they were still around, the situation wouldn't reach its absolute worst. Thank you for the meal. I must be going now to arrange a partner for Jiro's disciple. Ichiryu left Setsuno's diner, leaving behind a massive stack of empty bowls and plates where he had been sitting. As the president of the Igo, he wasn't idle like the wandering drunkard Jiro. He had countless matters to attend to. He had only made time to come eat today because Jiro had personally asked him. Ichi is the busiest among us brothers and sisters, Setsuno said with a wry smile as she cleared the dishes. Ichiryu shouldered the burdens of the entire human world. She, on the other hand, was relatively free, opening her diner only on a whim. Jiro spent his days searching for sake, his most frequent haunt being the Liquor King Islands, a place he visited so often you'd think there were 8 days in a week. He was a true slave to alcohol. Midora had founded the Gourmet Corp, but he rarely managed its affairs, spending most of his time just eating. Indeed. Even his full-course menu. Jiro trailed off, taking a sip of his sake and shaking his head with a smile. He and Setsuno were among the few who knew what was on Ichiryu's menu. It contained no particularly rare or exquisite delicacies. But when combined, the full course could unleash a tremendous effect. Food was plentiful now, but who could say what the future held? If famine were to strike, Ichiryu's full-course menu could save countless lives, sustaining them until food supplies could be restored. They both deeply admired Ichiryu's character. He was a simple yet great man. Back when they all lived together, he would share the majority of any captured food with his younger siblings, giving the rest to the poor and hungry. Even Ichiryu's gourmet demon used to complain constantly, begging him to eat something delicious for once instead of his usual, plain fare. I wonder who Ichi will introduce to Kenji as a partner, Setsuno mused. Will it be one of the famous chefs? With her status, she knew practically every well-known chef, many of whom were still without partners. Ichi will handle it. We don't need to worry, Jiro said. As the president of the IGO, Ichiryu certainly knew plenty of chefs. Most would agree to partner with Kenji simply out of respect for him. Has Teppei been back recently? Jiro asked quietly. The frustration he once felt for his grandson had faded. Now that he had Kenji to inherit his legacy, he no longer worried about his skills being lost to time. No. He's either with Yusaku or off somewhere regenerating some ingredient, Setsuno replied. Let him be. Jiro sighed, shaking his head with a sense of resignation. He had hoped Teppei would become an outstanding gourmet hunter, but he had chosen the path of a reviver instead. Still, Jiro was confident in Teppei's strength and wasn't worried about him getting into trouble. Since Teppei liked being a reviver, he wouldn't say any more about it. He couldn't force him to be a gourmet hunter. If you say so. That brat doesn't even know to come home and visit, Setsuno grumbled, her lingering dissatisfaction with Teppei still apparent. Well, should I go drag him back? Jiro offered with a grin. That won't be necessary, Setsuno said, rolling her eyes. She had no doubt Jiro had the strength to do it, but that would just make things awkward. If she wanted to see Teppei, she could just call him or Yusaku. Well, Setsu, I'm off. The booze is gone, Jiro announced, tipping his bottle upside down and finding it empty. He immediately stood up. Traveling to the gourmet world was too much trouble, so his usual source of fine liquor was the Liquor King Islands. He was a regular there, visiting almost every single day of the year. Go on, get out of here, Setsuno said, waving him off. She knew her booze-loving partner well. The IGO's chief Mansam loved a good drink, but compared to Jiro, he was just an amateur. Chapter 15, Tina. Chocolate cicadas chirped incessantly from the tree trunks, adding a layer of buzzing noise to the hot, humid air. Today's breakfast is hot dog caterpillars, and sandwich flowers. Every day, Kenji's meals were a gift from nature. It was like opening a blind box, he ate whatever he came across. Many of the ingredients required no cooking and could be eaten raw. For anyone with basic survival skills, the wilderness provided an endless buffet. The only catch was the danger. If an ordinary person couldn't handle the powerful gourmet beasts, they risked becoming an appetizer themselves. The hot dog caterpillars were as long as his forearm, and the flowers blooming on the ground were literal sandwiches. Although his food immersion ability allowed him to go for long periods without eating or drinking, having regular meals had become a cherished habit. Kenji, want to go to the Gourmet Central Wholesale Market? Toriko, dressed in shorts, a t-shirt, and a pair of sandals, strolled over and extended an invitation. Sure, let's go, Kenji agreed, quickly finishing his breakfast. The two set off immediately. Along the way, each of them captured a beast to trade once they reached their destination. Toriko caught a 1.5-ton sharkle, a species of pterosaur-like beast with a capture level of 4. Kenji snagged a juvenile terror bird, weighing around 2 tons. It was an avialan beast with a capture level of about 8, a fully grown adult could weigh up to 9 tons. A terror bird, eh? Looks delicious, Toriko said, already drooling. But Kenji had no intention of handing this prize over to the glutton. It's just a juvenile. There's bound to be an adult nearby, Kenji said with a smile. I've heard that terror bird eggs make an exceptionally good omelette. That's true, Toriko agreed. Chatting and laughing, the two arrived at the Gourmet Central Wholesale Market. This massive marketplace was a confluence of delicacies from all over the world. Most of the ingredients were from the human world, ingredients from the gourmet world were incredibly rare and highly sought after, almost never seen. On the rare occasion a powerful gourmet hunter brought something back from the gourmet world, it would be snatched up in an instant. The market covered an area of 3,000 hectares, filled with warehouses and stalls of all sizes. Every day, 900,000 tons of ingredients were traded, with a daily transaction volume exceeding 1,000,000,000,000 yen. Step right up, step right up. A ground dragon turtle. Bidding starts at 100,000. Excellent ingredients were everywhere. The highest bidder took home the prize. Most of the shoppers here were either rich or noble, an ordinary person couldn't even afford a fraction of the cost. It's so lively. This truly is the age of gourmet, Kenji remarked, amazed by the sheer volume of people. Thud. They dropped their captured beasts on the ground. The weight, several tons in total, made the ground tremble, instantly attracting the attention of nearby vendors and buyers. It's one of the 4 heavenly kings, Toriko. Is that a sharkle? Amazing. As expected of Toriko. A crowd of onlookers quickly gathered, their faces filled with excitement. In this great age of food, the status of a gourmet hunter was incredibly high. Many of the people here were Toriko's fans. Who's that next to Toriko? I don't recognize him, but he captured a terror bird. Must be a friend of Toriko's. He looks so young. I've never seen him before. Soon, people began to notice Kenji. However, since he had no reputation to speak of, he didn't cause a major stir. His handsome face did, however, earn him more than a few second glances from the women in the crowd. Good looks were a form of justice, and they were a valuable asset wherever you went. Thanks to gourmet cells, many gourmet hunters were quite attractive, with a few notable exceptions. Mr. Toriko. Mr. Kenji. You're here too. Komatsu squeezed through the crowd with great effort and appeared before them. Komatsu. Are you here to buy ingredients? Toriko asked, surprised to run into him here. Johannes? Looks like this is ego business, Toriko muttered, recognizing the man in the suit who had appeared with Komatsu. He was an old acquaintance of the man with the sunglasses and black suit. Mr. Toriko, what a pleasure to see you, Johannes said with a nod. Compared to the other 3 heavenly kings, Toriko at least did some actual work, having discovered many new ingredients over the years. A sharkle, and a terror bird. And there, the heavenly king Toriko, a powerful gourmet hunter, and his gourmet hunter friend. What an explosive scoop! As they were talking, a woman rushed toward them, followed by a man with a large camera. Kenji watched the female reporter with interest. She wore a pink lady's suit, had long chestnut hair, and wore a light pink lip gloss, giving her an air of elegance. It was Tina. In the manga, this character didn't exist, but in the anime, she had a significant role, often acting as a narrator and appearing frequently, making her a well-known supporting character. Toriko. My name is Tina, and this is Kuropo. Meeting you is such a a supersized bowl of luck. I'm a gourmet reporter for Gourmet TV, introducing ingredients from all over the world. Toriko, please grant me an interview. Tina said excitedly. With Toriko's fame, an interview with him would undoubtedly send their ratings through the roof. Toriko scratched his head. Unlike the reserved Komatsu, this woman was incredibly forward. He didn't even know her, and she was already getting in his face. Still, he nodded. It was just an interview, and he wasn't busy. He didn't mind. Kenji's sweat dropped. Is this the price of fame? No interviews at this time. Johannes stepped between them. The light glinting off his narrow sunglasses, combined with his stern, unapproachable face, was incredibly intimidating. Ego. The cameraman recognized the men in black suits and gasped in shock. I am Johannes, Director of the Food Development Department in the Ego's Development Bureau, Johannes said, pushing up his sunglasses with a smirk. Tina, let it go. These are Ego agents. If they say no, we can't interview him, the cameraman whispered urgently. They couldn't afford to offend the Ego. A single word from them could cost them their jobs. That was the best case scenario. The worst case scenario was that they could be made to disappear. On what grounds? Toriko already agreed. Let me go. Hey, wait a minute. Tina protested stubbornly, but it was no use. She was unceremoniously escorted away by two of the suit-clad thugs. Her cameraman scurried after them, not daring to say another word. The ego's status was simply too high. Anyone with a bit of sense, especially in their line of work, knew who you couldn't afford to cross. Chapter 16, The Eighth Biotope. And just like that, the brief interruption was over, and a quiet calm settled over the market once more. Mr. Johannes, was that really necessary? Komatsu asked, feeling that the ego's methods were a bit too heavy-handed and impersonal. Komatsu, the matter we are about to discuss cannot be broadcast by the media, Johannes replied coolly. Johannes, whatever it is, can it wait? Let Kenji and me sell these two catches first, Toriko said. They were old acquaintances, and he knew Johannes was here with a commission. Whether he accepted it or not would depend on how interesting it was. Tom, I'll leave these with you, Toriko said. You got it. Thanks for the business, Tom nodded, immediately calling for a tow truck to haul away the charcoal and the terror bird. Both had been knocked and were incredibly fresh, they would sell quickly. He paid them handsomely on the spot. Ingredients with a capture level of 4 or higher were in high demand. Besides using the military, only skilled gourmet hunters could capture them. Mr. Toriko, who is this gentleman? Johannes asked, his gaze shifting to Kenji. He appeared to be a powerful gourmet hunter, but Johannes had never seen him before. The conversation they were about to have concerned internal ego matters. This is Kenji, a friend of mine. You don't have to worry about him leaking anything, Toriko said casually. Johannes, you could say I have some connections to the ego as well, Kenji added with a nod. In that case, I'll get right to it. Mr. Toriko, I have a commission for you, Johannes said. Toriko looked puzzled. Doesn't the ego have plenty of gourmet hunters under its employ? Why do you need me? The rainbow fruit is about to ripen. Johannes pushed up his glasses, dropping the bombshell. He knew an ordinary commission wouldn't pique Toriko's interest. At the mention of the rainbow fruit, Toriko's nonchalant expression vanished, his eyes widening with keen interest. The rainbow fruit! Komatsu shouted, his voice trembling with excitement. Is that the fruit from the mythical tree that changes into 7 different flavors depending on the temperature and humidity? Hey, Komatsu, you're being too loud! Johannes yelped, startled. As expected, heads all around them turned in their direction. However, seeing that Johannes was from the ego, no one made any rash moves. Johannes understood Komatsu's shock. The rainbow fruit was incredibly rare, seldom seen on the market, and was once even thought to be extinct. The juice of the rainbow fruit was so concentrated that a single drop could turn a 20-meter swimming pool into a rich, flavorful fruit juice. The value of a single fruit was enough to set someone up for life, a testament to its rarity. The ego cultivated it, didn't you? Toriko guessed, his interest now fully captured. This was an ingredient he had never eaten before. Yes, Mr. Toriko. While it's not purely natural, the flavor of this improved rainbow fruit is nearly identical to the original, Johannes confirmed. But why do you need me for this? Can't the ego staff handle it? Just as the rainbow fruit was about to ripen, a troop of troll kongs built a nest near the tree. No one has been able to get close to it since. They are the strongest species of ape in the human world. A few days ago, we deployed a 2 billion yen tank, and it was flipped over like a toy. Keep in mind, that tank weighed 40 tons, Johannes said with a helpless sigh. The Bureau of Administration has issued a capture level of 9, a beast that surpasses even the Gala Gator. The troll kongs are likely using the fragrance of the rainbow fruit to attract more prey, which they then hunt, Kenji deduced. The ego had cloned and improved this species. They moved in groups, were quite powerful, possessed some intelligence, and had a clear hierarchical structure within their troops. That's correct, Mr. Kenji, Johannes confirmed. A troop of troll kongs gathered together is a formidable force. Most gourmet hunters can't handle them. If it were just one, they wouldn't have needed Toriko, but the sheer number was the problem. Mr. Toriko, please accept the commission. It's the rainbow fruit. Komatsu urged excitedly. He had complete faith in Toriko's strength. All right, you win. I want to try it too, Toriko relented. Kenji, you want in? He looked over at Kenji. Johannes's brow furrowed. Komatsu was the head chef of an ego-affiliated hotel, so his presence was fine, but he was still unsure about Kenji's identity. This card should suffice, right? Kenji said, pulling out the black card Jiro had given him. It was a symbol of status. So, you are associated with that esteemed individual. Upon seeing the black card, Johannes' expression immediately became much more respectful. He happened to be one of the few who knew who the holder of this card was. Knocking Master Jiro. If this man was connected to him, then there was no problem. He didn't for a second believe Kenji could have stolen it. Jiro was one of the legends standing at the pinnacle of the world, and he had a close relationship with Ego President Ichiryu. There was no need to doubt someone like that. Still, he would have to contact the president later. This man might even be Jiro's disciple. An unlimited gourmet black card. Toriko said, surprised. Kenji, how did you get that? He had one himself and knew they weren't handed out to just anyone. He never expected Kenji, a relatively unknown gourmet hunter, to possess an Ego-issued unlimited black card. An elder gave it to me. I don't have that kind of clout myself, Kenji said with a faint smile. His master Jiro had no use for it, and his master Setsuno likely had one as well. Given their relationship, it was unlikely Ichiryu wouldn't have given them one. Then let's get going. It's been a while since I've shown my face in that nostalgic garden, Toriko said with a grin. Kenji nodded. After this, he would likely gain some fame and attract the attention of the Ego and, consequently, Neo, since the Ego was crawling with their spies. However, given Neo's power, they probably wouldn't pay much attention to a small fry like him who had never even been to the gourmet world. Johannes drove the three of them to the Ego's 8th biotope, the journey unimpeded. They soon arrived at their destination. After getting out of the car, they were greeted by the sight of a towering wall made of thick, reinforced concrete. What a brave reporter! She actually followed us, Kenji chuckled, turning his head to look behind a large rock. A motorcycle was parked there, not very well hidden. The headlight was peeking out. Chapter 17, Inviting the Group Members. She's got some nerve, Toriko muttered, his nose twitching. He had only just met Tina, but his sensitive sense of smell had already committed her scent to memory. Are all reporters this bold these days? Daring to sneak into an Ego biotope, was she not afraid of getting a one-way ticket to gourmet prison? You two, escort her out, Johannes ordered two of the guards. Sir. The guards saluted and walked toward Tina. Let me go. So the Ego is all that great, huh? Interfering with a person's freedom. Tina yelled, struggling violently as the two soldiers held her. The Ego does not interfere with anyone's personal freedom, Johannes stated calmly. Toriko, please. Let me come with you. Tina pleaded. Toriko thought for a moment. Let her go, he said. She's just an ordinary person with no power. Fine, Johannes conceded. But no cameras. Tina's background check had come up clean. All right, Tina sighed, a little disappointed about the camera ban, but glad she was at least allowed to go in. Unseen by the others, Kenji had already flown up to the top of the wall. Star Forger, we're about to capture the rainbow fruit. Anyone want to come join the fun? Miss Pink Elf, I happen to be free right now. I'm in. Elysia was intrigued. This would be their first in-person meeting. Ghost of the Uchiha, I still haven't dealt with Black Zetsu, so I will pass. If Black Zetsu sensed something was amiss, his cautious nature would make him disappear without a trace. He hadn't returned to Madara's side recently, leaving no opportunity to eliminate the threat. Star Forger, what about you, Furina? Lady Justice, I. Furina wanted to go, but she was scared. She had no real power. If something happened to her, Fontaine would be doomed. Miss Pink Elf, come on, Furina. It should be safe. Right, Kenji. Star Forger, come on over. I can handle things at the 8th biotope. Miss Pink Elf has requested to enter. Lady Justice has requested to enter. Accept or decline. Kenji hit accept without hesitation. He was about to meet them in person, not as 2D characters. A thrill of excitement ran through him. A few seconds later, a spatial vortex swirled open. A pink-haired elf emerged, curiously looking around. Beside her, a nervous Furina stood stiffly. The pink hair cascaded down her back, framing a flawless, beautiful face. It was truly Elysia, stunning enough to make one's heart skip a beat. The nickname Pink Piggy wasn't wrong, her fire moth uniform seemed to struggle to contain her ample assets, which threatened to burst forth at any moment. So big and white, he thought, referring to the uniform, of course. Don't get the wrong idea. As for Furina, she was adorable, like a soft, sweet little cake. Her eyes had a certain innocent clarity. She had the looks, but her figure, she could probably sit at the same table as Hu Tao. Ha ha ha. A little teasing, and her hydro energy would probably be overflowing. Hi. It's nice to finally meet you, Kenji. You're quite handsome, Elysia said with a graceful wave. We've all introduced ourselves in the group, so no need for that. By the way, Kenji, she added, I felt like you were thinking something naughty just now. Was I imagining things? Kenji simply nodded. I was just curious about your current weight, Elysia. Elysia placed her hands on her hips, feigning indignation. It's very rude to ask a beautiful maiden such a question. Kenji just smiled. Elysia's figure was perfect just the way it was. Furina. It's so good to see you. You're so cute. Elysia turned to Furina and immediately pulled her into a hug. The collision with her hearts of gold was a 100% critical hit. Furina was not pleased. Compared to Elysia's assets, her own figure felt rather flat. What did she eat to get them that big? Kenji felt a pang of envy, but he was also witnessing the legendary hairsker of queers in action. Her first instinct was to get cuddly with the cute girl. Ahem. Focalers, did you tell your Prime Minister Nouvellette where you were going? Kenji quickly corrected himself. I'm not a fool. I told Nouvellette I was going to visit a friend for a little while. Furina shot Kenji a glare. How dare he call the great Hydro Archon a fool? Death penalty. It must be the death penalty. Kenji nodded. Nouvellette had a lot on his plate and couldn't keep an eye on Furina every second. What a pitiful Dragon King, tricked by Focalers into being a beast of burden for 500 years. Elysia looked at Furina with a pitying gaze. When she had hugged her, she had used her hairsker authority to subtly probe, and she had learned some interesting things. The self-proclaimed Hydro Archon before her had very little power, nowhere near the level of a god. The only thing that set her apart from a normal human was a strange power that granted her a long lifespan. But, her heart was crying. She was exhausted, pushed to her absolute limit. Her spirit was incredibly fragile. Elysia's heart ached for her. She had no idea what Furina had been through, but she could sense the overwhelming negative emotions, pain, exhaustion, loneliness, numbness. It was the first time Elysia had ever sensed such a concentration of negativity in one person. She didn't ask, because she knew Furina probably wouldn't tell her. This was a very strong girl. Stay close to me, Kenji said, directing the words mainly at Furina. She had no combat ability. As for Elysia, she would be fine here. Wait, are we supposed to jump down from here? Furina suddenly realized how high the wall was. A fall from this height would surely turn her into Furina paste. You don't know how to use a wind glider? Kenji asked, puzzled. I never had the time, Furina said with an embarrassed laugh. She knew about wind gliders, but she usually traveled by foot or boat and had never needed one on flat ground. I'll carry you, Furina, Elysia offered, ever the helpful one. Kenji's mouth twitched. Your intentions are so obvious, only a fool like Furina wouldn't see it. Swoosh. Kenji leaped off the wall. He'd leave Furina to Elysia. It was time for her to experience Elysia's vicious side firsthand. Elysia smiled, standing behind Furina. She wrapped her arms under Furina's, pulling her into an embrace. Her soft, bouncy chest pressed against Furina's back, deforming under the pressure. Her mischievous hands roamed over Furina's chest, as if taking her measurements. Furina's face turned beet red. Ely, your hands. See, could you please not move them like that? A tingling sensation shot through her nerves, traveling straight to her brain, almost making her moan out loud. And also, why do you seem so practiced at this? Before she could say anything, the two of them were airborne. Boom. Not long after Kenji and the others landed, a section of the wall nearby exploded. Shattered concrete flew everywhere, leaving a massive, gaping hole in the thick wall. Kenji, you made it in, Toriko said, turning to look at him. And who are these two? He knew Kenji could fly, but he had never seen Elysia or Furina before. With their striking appearances, they couldn't be ordinary people. My friends, Elysia and Furina. They came to join the fun. No problem, right? Kenji said with a smile. None at all, Toriko replied, shaking his head. If they were friends of Kenji, they were trustworthy. Chapter 18, The Troll Kongs. A deep, wide moat surrounded the entire biotope. Aside from flying creatures, most beasts were unable to cross it to get near the concrete walls. Toriko skillfully lowered the drawbridge. With a bridge available, there was no need to take a more difficult route. After crossing, Kenji glanced up. On a cliff face stood a 4-meter-tall ape with 4 arms and fur as hard as steel needles. It was holding a massive boulder. Baiu! Kenji flicked a knocking needle with a casual raise of his hand, and the troll Kong immediately fell into a deep sleep. A troll Kong! Toriko's head whipped around, alerted by the sound of the beast falling. So they know how to set an ambush. Cunning creatures. Just a small fry. Anyone want some brain? Kenji asked. The meat of a troll Kong was tough and full of sinew, but its brain was said to be a unique delicacy, favored by a niche group of foodies. No, thank you, Elysia said, shaking her head. She had no interest in such peculiar cuisine. I'll pass, Toriko added. The only edible part of a troll Kong was its brain. Compared to the rainbow fruit, its culinary value was mediocre at best. The ingredients growing in the biotope were all of exceptionally high quality. Try this, Kenji said, picking a banana cucumber and handing it to Furina. A cucumber that tastes like a banana? It's so crisp and refreshing. Furina took a bite and froze, stunned by the bizarre ingredient. Did a banana and a cucumber have an affair? After passing through a cave, they were greeted by a field of bones. A troop of troll Kongs appeared before them, surrounding the rainbow fruit tree. They snarled and bared their teeth, giving the unwelcome guests a fierce display of intimidation. Boom! 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 The sound of 100 troll Kongs beating their chests was like thunder. The very air vibrated. Komatsu and Tina trembled, a primal fear seizing them. We're going to die. Furina retreated behind Elysia, using her as a shield. The rainbow fruit, its fragrance is so rich. I want to eat it, Toriko drooled, his waterfall returning. His incredibly sensitive nose could fully appreciate the complex, sweet aroma, a mixture of many different fruits. What a beautiful rainbow fruit, Elysia's eyes lit up. The juice evaporating from the fruit created a 7-colored rainbow, a dazzling and vibrant sight that perfectly matched its name. Kenji, I'm going in, Toriko said, wiping his drool. He charged forward, knocking gun in hand, taking down the troll Kongs that blocked his path. President Ichiryu probably didn't teach him much about knocking, Kenji observed. Toriko's knocking skills were mediocre at best. His usual method was to overwhelm his prey with brute force. Toriko. To catch a thief, first catch the king. Kenji shouted. Hearing this, Toriko nodded and began scanning the troop. He finally spotted a silver-furred troll Kong. It was a different color and stood a full meter taller than the others. Ha, found you. The silverback troll Kong. Toriko grinned savagely. Wasting no more time on the grunts, he charged straight for their leader. Okay. Seeing Toriko approach, the silverback let out a loud roar, issuing a command to the others. At their leader's order, a large group of troll Kongs charged toward Kenji's group. They were intelligent enough to try and use hostages. The ferocious aura washing over them made Komatsu and Tina feel like their lives were flashing before their eyes. Is this how it ends? Wah! I knew I shouldn't have come, Furina whimpered, her body trembling. Any one of these troll Kongs could crush her with ease. Don't be afraid, Furina. I'll protect you, Elysia said, drawing a breathtakingly beautiful bow, the whisper of the past, sonnet of love. A pink crystal arrow was knocked on its string. They're underestimating us, Kenji muttered. Area knocking. Kenji's brow furrowed. He slammed his right fist into the ground. An invisible force radiated out from him in all directions. Vroom. The charging troll Kongs froze in place as if someone had hit a pause button, their bodies locked in various dynamic poses. It was a scaled-down version of earth knocking, capable of affecting all creatures within a certain range. The energy cost was a tiny fraction of the real thing. All quiet now, Kenji said. Toriko, hurry it up over there. Toriko was stunned. That godlike knocking technique. Kenji's master had to be that legendary figure. This wasn't just an ordinary knocking move, it was on a completely different level, conducted through the ground itself. Amazing! Furina peeked out from behind Elysia, her face a mask of shock. So many huge monsters, and Kenji had stopped them all just by hitting the ground. He really is a big shot. Maybe he really can create stars in the future. I wonder what he thinks about Fontaine's prophecy. Elysia and Madara had both gotten information about their worlds from him. Maybe she could ask too. With the troll Kongs collectively knocked, the group walked unimpeded toward the fruit tree. The rainbow fruit. It hasn't even been cooked yet, but the aroma is already so rich, Komatsu marveled. As they got closer, the fragrance intensified. Toriko's drool waterfall made a reappearance. If not for his self-control, he probably would have lunged forward and taken a bite right off the tree. Komatsu and the others were no different, their mouths watering uncontrollably. It was a primal, instinctual reaction. Kenji felt his own mouth water, but it wasn't as exaggerated as Toriko's. Among the 4 heavenly kings, Toriko was the acknowledged glutton. His appetite was immense, and the 3 demons residing within him likely amplified his hunger. On the massive tree hung several fruits, each enveloped in a rainbow-colored mist, emitting an incredibly alluring, sweet scent. The troll Kongs had claimed this area as their territory, using the fragrance to lure in other prey. It was the first time Furina and Elysia had ever smelled something so fragrant. Nothing in their own worlds could compare. I wonder what a natural rainbow fruit looks like, Kenji said with a smile. You probably can't find a natural one in the human world anymore, Toriko said, wiping his drool. Even if some still existed, they would be hidden away in some forgotten corner of the world, which is why they were rumored to be extinct. There are probably some in the gourmet world, Kenji said. You can find the original species of many human world ingredients there. That's very likely, Toriko agreed. A single rainbow fruit weighed over a ton, more than enough for all of them. For ordinary people, the juice was too concentrated. Ingesting too much at once could cause nosebleeds and a dangerous spike in blood sugar. Please, allow me to cook it. Komatsu requested earnestly. For a chef, the satisfaction of preparing such a magnificent ingredient was even greater than the pleasure of eating it. Kenji handed the rainbow fruit to Komatsu without hesitation. He was the only professional chef among them. Chapter 19, Tasting the Rainbow Fruit. Ugh, what a shame I can't film this, Tina lamented. To witness such a beautiful ingredient and not be able to record it was a true tragedy. Miss Tina, you can film it after we leave the biotope, Johannes clarified. Tina nodded. If she angered the ego, her career would likely be over. Gourmet Hotel, 97th floor observatory restaurant. The restaurant manager watched Kenji and Toriko eat, breaking out in a cold sweat. He was genuinely worried that the hotel's entire food stock wouldn't be enough to satisfy the 2 of them. Waiters pushed carts back and forth, tirelessly serving dishes and clearing plates. Even the professionally trained staff was flustered and drenched in sweat, unable to keep up with their eating pace. Toriko alone could probably clean out the hotel's inventory. Add Kenji to the mix, with his food immersion ability, and the amount of energy needed to make him feel full was an astronomical figure. Kenji, are you storing the energy from the food? Toriko asked. They had known each other for a few days, and he had never once seen Kenji's stomach bulge. It was as if the digestion step didn't even exist for him. It's called food immersion. It allows you to store a massive amount of energy from food. You'll get a chance to learn it eventually, Kenji explained. Ichiryu had plans for Toriko and the other kings. Toriko nodded. The skill to run on water was optional, but this energy storage ability was incredibly useful. The power of one's techniques and combat stamina were both directly related to energy reserves. Elysia and Furina ate much less. They didn't have gourmet cells, so their appetites were no different from a normal person's. Thank you for your patience, everyone. And now, for the grand finale dessert. Komatsu pushed a trolley toward them, swallowing repeatedly. On it were several plates, each holding a wobbly rainbow fruit that looked as bouncy and jiggly as jelly. It smells incredible, Kenji's eyes lit up. The appetizers they just had couldn't even compare to the aroma of the rainbow fruit. As the juice continuously evaporated, a brilliant, 7-colored rainbow formed above the fruit. What a delicious scoop! Is this the rainbow fruit? Tina drooled, yet still professionally filmed the scene with her camera. It's so beautiful, Elysia commented. She rarely described food this way, but the rainbow fruit was truly beyond her wildest imagination. Furina felt that all the little cakes she had eaten before now paled in comparison. She had made the right choice in coming. If it weren't for the unresolved prophecy in Fontaine, she would have loved to stay in this world for a few more days. As time passes and the temperature rises, gulp, the flavor will also change. Please, enjoy, Komatsu explained, his own saliva flowing uncontrollably. Let's eat. The moment his spoon touched the fruit, Kenji felt its pudding-like softness. Yet, scooping up even a small piece felt surprisingly heavy, as if it were made of solid gold. This was a testament to the immense energy contained within the fruit. Delicious. So good. The instant it entered his mouth, Kenji's eyes widened. He felt 4 distinct flavors explode on his palate. The sweetness was like hundreds of ripe mangoes condensed into one, occasionally punctuated by a tartness that no lemon or passion fruit could match. Then came a 5th flavor, a nutty aroma like roasted chestnuts. Eating the rainbow fruit was like opening a treasure chest. As the pulp slid down his throat, a 6th flavor erupted. A 7-colored fruit with 7 distinct flavors, it was truly irresistible. Kenji felt his own strength increase slightly, an effect that even the Gala Gator meat hadn't provided. It was truly a masterpiece ingredient, specially cultivated by the ego. Elysia and Furina savored their portions slowly. Although it was incredibly sweet, it wasn't cloying, but rather a complex and rich sweetness. Dessert, it's decided, it's the rainbow fruit. Toriko exclaimed, tears welling up in his eyes. The flavor of the rainbow fruit was something he would never forget. He decided then and there to add it to his life's full-course menu as the dessert. Komatsu and the others erupted in cheers. They had been fortunate enough to witness the moment one of the 4 heavenly kings finalized a dish on his menu. Tina excitedly recorded the historic moment. Kenji smiled and congratulated Toriko. The rainbow fruit was indeed a fitting dessert for him. Toriko's own gourmet cells had even evolved slightly. Kenji was in no hurry to decide his own menu. That would have to wait until he entered the gourmet world. Kenji, I need to talk to you about something, Furina whispered, not wanting anyone else to overhear. Kenji nodded and led her away from the group. Elysia noticed this, her eyes darting between them before she quietly followed. Gourmet hotel, rooftop. So, Focalers, what did you want to talk about? Kenji asked with a grin. While she was beautiful as a 2D character, seeing her in person was even more stunning. She was so much more real. I'm not a fool. Furina snapped, her hands on her hips. Idiots usually say that, Kenji added. Furina. Her cheeks puffed out in anger, like a blowfish. This man is so rude. How am I a fool? I'm a genius. Death penalty. HAAA. Taking a deep breath, Furina asked tentatively, you know that I... Kenji finished her sentence for her. You wanted to say you don't have any real power, right? Furina might not have the Hydro Archon's divine power, but she was, in essence, the Hydro Archon's personality. Furina bit her lip and nodded. Even though she knew the people in the chat group were from outside Tivat, she still hadn't revealed her true identity, mainly because she was worried that someone from Tivat might join the group in the future. If Kenji knew what she was thinking, he would have been speechless. You can private message people in the chat group, you silly girl. Ha, Lady Furina, you wouldn't want anyone to find out that you're not the real Hydro Archon, would you? Kenji's lips curled into a wicked smile as he slowly advanced on her. Furina's face paled. She backed away until her back hit a wall. Kenji kept getting closer. Oh no. I've read about this kind of scenario in some of Inazuma's light novels. She was powerless, completely at his mercy. Was Kenji really going to do things to her, right here on this empty rooftop? Why, is my 500-year-old innocence going to be lost today? Why you, stay back. I'll scream. Furina clutched her chest, her warning utterly powerless. Go ahead and scream. No one will come, even if you scream your throat out, Kenji said playfully. Teasing her was just too much fun. He reached out and tilted her chin up, feigning to lean in for a kiss. Furina squeezed her eyes shut, her face turning bright red. It's over, it's over. Is my first kiss going to be stolen now? To be honest, Kenji did feel a sudden impulse to kiss her. Was it the influence of the Starforger's power? Dragons were known for their procreative desires. Okay, fine, I'm just a pervert. Besides, who wouldn't be tempted by Furina? She was a goddess. She had the looks, and the looks. His morals were easily swayed by a pretty face. Scream your throat out is here. Unhand that maiden. Let me, no, wait. A certain pink-haired scream your throat out leaped out to play the hero, shouting dramatically. Kenji. Furina. Great. It's Elysia. I'm saved. Chapter 20, The Sun God and the Crash Test Pilot. When Elysia jumped out, Furina realized she had been played. A wave of shame and annoyance washed over her. She had actually thought Kenji, overcome by some beastly urge, was about to have his way with her. Kenji just looked up at the sky. She really is a silly girl, he thought. So easy to fool. Elysia and Furina didn't stay long before returning to their respective worlds. In Elysia's time, the previous Hairsker had been defeated a while ago, meaning the third was due to appear soon. As for Furina, the superstar of Fontaine, she couldn't afford to be away for too long. Moshi Moshi. Kenji, the puffer whales are in their spawning season. Kenji answered the phone he kept in his pocket, hearing Toriko's excited voice on the other end. Got it, Kenji replied before hanging up. The puffer whale was an exquisite ingredient, a mythical whale known as the delicacy of the deep sea. It only surfaced on a single beach once every 10 years to lay its eggs, making the spawning season the only time it could be captured. The gourmet train. The puffer whale's return had attracted a great number of gourmet hunters. Even a poisoned puffer whale was highly valuable on the black market, simply because its flavor was so divine. As soon as Kenji boarded the train, he ran into his master, Jiro. Master, are you here to capture a puffer whale? Kenji, it's you, Jiro said, opening his drunken eyes at the sound of the familiar voice. Sake made from puffer whale fins is a rare treat. I come here pretty much every time they return to spawn. Is that so? Then I'll have to give it a try, Kenji said with anticipation. The taste won't disappoint you, Jiro stated with certainty. Kenji made his way to their reserved train car. Toriko was already drinking, a table full of booze in front of him. Who knows how many cars he had raided to get it all. Kenji, you're a little late, Toriko said. I just ran into my master and we chatted for a bit, Kenji explained with a smile. That esteemed senior is here too. Toriko guessed who Kenji's master was, his expression turning respectful. That legendary figure was on the same level as President Ichiryu. Suddenly, 2 new notifications popped up in the chat group. Sun God has joined the chat group. Crash Test Pilot has joined the chat group. 2 new members, Kenji thought, checking the chat log. Crash Test Pilot, what is this? A chat group? Why was I added? Crash Test Pilot? Kenji mused. The nickname was very distinctive. It had to be either Daigo or Shinjo from Ultraman Tiga. In a 52-episode series, those two must have crashed dozens of times. Shinjo, taking off, Daigo. Shinjo, feel like crashing one. Daigo, let's do it. Shinjo, Daigo, my boy, how many is this for us? Daigo, 1 per episode. This makes 52. When it came to crashing planes, those two were professionals. Sun God must be Apollo from the world of Galaxy Racers, the big gun for the good guys. Despite his immense power, he was held back by his unreliable teammates and was taken out of the story after only a few episodes. His line, "Evil Planetoid, you have some nerve," was incredibly cool. Miss Pink Elf, there's a group announcement at the top. Crash Test Pilot, I see it. Hello, everyone. You can just call me Daigo. I'm a member of Guts. I can't believe other worlds really exist. So it was indeed one of the aces of the Crash duo. Daigo. The TPC's budget for aircraft repair must have been astronomical. Starforger, Daigo, have you encountered any kaiju yet? Crash Test Pilot, kaiju? No, I haven't. Daigo was confused. Why would he encounter a giant monster? While the TPC was tasked with protecting humanity from unexplained phenomena, kaiju seemed a bit over the top. Crash Test Pilot, are you saying I'm going to encounter kaiju in the future? Starforger, yes. Since you're a member of Guts now, it won't be long before you run into giant monsters. Daigo fell silent, a headache already forming. If he told his captain about this, she'd probably think he was spouting nonsense. Oh well, I'll just be extra vigilant. If a monster does appear, the captain will know what to do. Crash test pilot, by the way, what's with this nickname? Daigo had just noticed it said crash test, not ace. Star Forger, you're going to crash, a lot. You'll basically crash every time you encounter a monster. You'll crash when you're flying solo, and you'll crash when you're teamed up with Shinjo. While it was often due to circumstances beyond his control, Daigo really did crash an absurd number of times. Crash test pilot. Okay, crash test sounded about right. Daigo's feelings were complicated. He never imagined he'd crash so many times in the future. The TPC's fighter jets were expensive. He hoped they wouldn't make him pay for the damages. Sun God, I am currently sealed in ice. Is there any way you can help? Apollo decided to stop lurking. He had been waiting for Gaia and the others for who knows how many years, but they still hadn't come to unseal him. His teammates were truly unreliable. If he could have broken out on his own, he would have done so long ago. Now that he had this chat group, he wasn't going to just sit around in the ice any longer if there was a chance to get out. Star Forger, try the daily sign-in function. You might get an item that can help you. Or you can save up points and buy something from the shop. Gaia and the others were infuriatingly incompetent. They had a powerhouse like Apollo waiting to be rescued, but in a 52-episode series, they didn't manage to free him until more than halfway through, only for him to get killed off shortly after. It was all for the sake of the plot, of course, but it was still a frustrating watch. Even though his enemy, Seiren, had been powered up, Apollo was still incredibly strong. He was just unlucky to have such useless teammates. Sun God, I understand. Kenji scrolled through the chat for a bit before returning his attention to reality. I was wondering where all the booze went. So it ended up with you. A rough voice boomed. Are you trying to hog it all, you bastard? I am the great gourmet hunter, Zanja. A long-haired man in a brown animal hide tunic appeared. His face wasn't exactly what you'd call handsome, and he was glaring fiercely at Toriko. Kenji recognized the man's distinctive face immediately. It was Zanja, a character many fans had ironically hyped up to an absurd degree, even joking that his gourmet luck surpassed Komatsu's. Bizarrely, his face bore a striking resemblance to the mate of the Monkey King Bambina, one of the 8 kings. He was a truly strange individual. Zanja's underling proudly began to list his boss's full-course menu. Toriko just smiled, shook his head, and stood up. At over 2 meters tall, his imposing presence made Zanja break out in a cold sweat. In his eyes, Toriko looked like a small giant. Smack! Toriko placed a large hand on Zanja's shoulder. Zanja jumped, thinking Toriko was about to hit him. Sorry about the booze, I took it all. You can have it if you want, Mr. Zombie, Toriko said with a friendly smile. Humph! It's Zanja. Remember it. Zanja said gruffly. He grabbed a bottle of booze and left with his lackeys. Character notes. Sun God, Apollo, from Galaxy Racers. Crash Test Pilot, Daigo, from Ultraman Tiga.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200+ audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Thanks for listening.